That's how they worded it.
I guess they're giving themselves room to extend bestiary if they need to, but I don't think that would be
Oh
a
god,
very
no.
popular decision. Yeah.
I mean, we
I
may as well
mean,
just start. So, hey guys, Baeclast, by the way. So how do you feel about the whole like extending of leagues things, like in general? Would you rather they extend leagues or they just gave us races?
I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'd probably rather a race than like a league, just because like if it's a league that you don't like and they extend it by like a month, you're just like, oh, that's just so long to wait in between.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the joy that was, what, 6 months of Legacy League? Dude, I was on suicide watch that whole time. But sorry, go on, Octavian.
Yeah, I mean, it's later on in the topic list, but you wanted to talk about later how like races too close to a league start can sort of sap the player base a bit, and I think that an extended league does that even more, like is even worse. So if it's choosing between those two, I would rather have races. It's more interesting content. Talking from the perspective of someone who tries to put out interesting content. Can't say I succeed though.
Whoa. Wait, what do you mean by sap?
Like just sort of I think Tarke phrased it in the Google Doc as like causing early burnout. And I think that in regards to burning out the player base, an extended league is way worse than a race. I actually hadn't, before reading this, considered the fact that a race might do something like that, where it's just continual path of exile. You don't have a real break from it. And that like maybe the league structure is it's not really something that a lot of other games do. I don't know. Season based content is, I suppose. But yeah. That's probably later on in the podcast though.
I really wouldn't worry about it too much. We've already basically just sort of started, but so what I meant by that, and agree or disagree. So I experienced this a lot going into Abyss League. So Harby for me was a league I wasn't that fond of. Then Turmoil came out, I had loads of fun in Turmoil, pushed really hard. And then Mayhem came out, pushed really hard, went for 100 and stuff. And then I can't remember how long exactly we had. I think it was like a week, maybe 10 days from that ending to Abyss starting. And I'd just done 2 full like 10-day races. So physically I was drained as fuck. Into then a new league start, and then Abyss just felt kind of meh. And if you remember, like, about a month into Abyss, we even spoke about this in one of the Baeclasts, it's like, what happened to all the streamers? It seemed like all the streamers stopped playing Abyss super early. And I think a lot of that is people pushed really hard in the races, and then they just, like, wore themselves out. I don't know, do you experience that at all?
I mean, I don't feel like that's the regular impression of, like, anybody else outside of, like, the 50 people or so that, like, really gone for it, so... Overall, I don't know. Well, I'm kind of used to it, so I didn't feel it, but I didn't feel it from like the community perspective that people really did get burned out like that. But people definitely felt the extension of the leagues. I know that was the first time that I ever really felt like when Legacy, or was it Legacy or Harbinger? I think Harbinger was longer too, right?
I think they both were a little bit long. Like, I think Legacy ran for like 5 to 6 months, and I think Harby had a little bit of that extra like month or so on the end as well.
Yeah, I really felt that. I don't know. And typically I don't focus on like league mechanics at all. Like everybody's like, I hate bestiary. Whatever.
I think part of the reason people might have gotten burned out of Abyss is the power creep that came with it. Like a lot of people were surprised at how much power came in with that patch. There was the Ascendancy reworks, there was the Abyss jewels, all of that shit. It added a lot of stuff to the game. Like that was one of the things that Nice Shot was saying. It was like, it's the biggest power creep patch since Ascendancy. Like, that was the first impression that I saw. That might have led to some players leaving early. I think the league was fine.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree with that. I think also kind of one of the issues that happened with Abyss was it was kind of like... Abyss was kind of cool in the fact that you could play some builds that you couldn't play before, but it was just kind of like, get as much flat Ellie as possible, get the fastest weapon possible, and then all the builds which had previously been good were just better because you also had like Elder and Shaper items. So the meta didn't really change that much. It was like everything that was good for the last couple of leagues was just better. And now you can do like a Ellie Brightbeak build. That was kind of all that really changed. So in that sense, it was a little bit boring. I don't know.
I did not really like Abyss Cracks. I didn't like the backtracking and the waiting and the pausing.
Shit, I still don't like it.
No, I don't like them either. Then the mob pops out. And then you put like 4 stacks of blight, and he's like JK, phase run, invon, cleanse everything, come out, smack you for 4K.
Why
Go
can't they
back-
just run like the ghosts in Torment? Like you just push them along. Wouldn't that make more sense? Like it would go with the map rather than backwards.
What do you mean, like push them along?
You know, like you can push ghosts along, but they just get pushed
Yeah.
to where you're running.
Sometimes.
I wonder. Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that have been better though?
I
I
guess
think
that's
the-
kind of what they intended. No.
I think the issue is the abyss is like preloaded before you enter the zone. Like if you remember, there was that a bug for a really long time where the abyssal depths would spawn in set locations, and there was that thing where you could tell where they were. Like if you entered and left like a master mission, you would like spawn on top of where the abyssal depths was. So it seemed like the abysses were preloaded. What I was hoping would happen is kind of like, as you said, the abyss would spawn based on where you ran into it. So for example, if it's like a ledge, like a straight layout, and you run forward into the abyss would follow that direction onwards. So if you wanted to push the abyss in a certain direction, you just start the crack that way. That's how I personally would have done it. But I don't think they have the tech, because they're just completely preloaded as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, that was something that somebody suggested in my chat. He was like, dude, I just figured it out. Abysses, you just gotta like poke them from the other side and then they go along. And I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. And then I did it, and it did, like actually did it like 3 times in a row, and then it didn't, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's not actually how it works. I just got lucky. So, I mean, I don't do abysses now. I didn't mind the league, but I don't fucking do abysses now. I don't touch that shit. Unless
There's
I, like,
so
really
much
got-
money in tier 16s in the trade.
Yeah, that's the big problem. Like you really gotta, but ugh.
Item level 82 plus abyss jewels can be anywhere from like 20 to 30 cows,
Yeah.
depending on how high it goes. Just buying them today.
Topic list.
Yeah, okay. So let's try and rework backwards into. Okay, so since we're on this whole like theme of abyss and cracks and whatever, one thing that I do kind of want to praise about abyss is they're clearly trying with the last few leagues to make the game slower through difficult monsters. Like the abyss rares were scary. And now they've done this thing with the, you know, buffed up beasts where they feel like mini boss fights. So it's kind of clear that they're trying to, like, slow down the game in some sense. But how do you feel in the fact that it's, like, most maps you just steamroll everything, then you hit the one, like, fancy named mob who's scarier than the map boss, then you, like, burn through that, and then the map boss is like, look at my HP bar, and then drops nothing. How do you feel about that kind of formula?
I think the map bosses are the issue, because you've already got things like the red beasts are like twice the life of a map boss. It's just like, what's the point in the map boss being a map boss, you know?
So you're saying buff map boss HP again?
Hell yeah. Triple it. Do it, Chris.
Only if they also buff the drops. I can't claim this to be my idea. I don't remember exactly where I found it. Might have been on Reddit, might have been in a Twitch chat somewhere. But one of the ideas that I've heard that I liked the most was basically to have sort of not necessarily literally a box, but the boss of the map reserves like say 20% of the loot from the monsters. And that way, if you go kill the boss at the start, the boss is dead, he doesn't do that anymore. You can go clear the rest of the map if you want to, if the layout works like that. Or you can kill all the monsters, then go kill the boss, you get a big loot explosion. You end up with basically the same amount of loot. You have a reason to actually kill the boss. You get a satisfying loot explosion at the end, but you can still clear the map in any way you want without being punished.
I just want a map from the boss guaranteed. Then
That would also be nice.
Yeah, like, I think one of the things with map bosses is people try and come up with these, like, very convoluted systems where, like, if you kill the map, then the rest of the boss is more loot. If you kill the boss, then the rest of the map gets more loot. What often ends up happening with that is you just get into, like, really degenerate playstyles, and they've been trying really hard to make all the different map layouts feel better. So, like, you look at something where, like, Underground Sea, which is now, like, really popular. The layout is a bit iffy, but it's kind of whatever. Imagine if now you had to clear it all, skip the boss room, then backtrack all the way through to then kill Mervale.
What?
Or you end up in a situation where you purposely run maps where you can, like, zerg the boss right away, and then do everything afterwards or skip it. I would rather they just made it like they just drop shit rather
That
than
would-
Yeah, pretty
high
much.
IQ systems. I don't know.
That would be nice. But I worry that if map bosses get, just too high of a drop rate, maybe this wouldn't even be a bad thing. Maybe I imagine this might be GGG's worry though as well, that map bosses would just become the target of the map potentially, and people would just open a map, skip through like half the content in the map, maybe kill the monsters on the way to the boss, but not bother with the rest, and then just kill the boss and get out. And we'd end up with an even faster meta potentially, where like you have maps where it's just boss hunting and it's not worth killing half the map. If you don't get the monsters on the way to the boss, it's fine. It's not really worth it. The boss gives you enough loot. We're definitely miles away from that meta right now. It seems strange and alien, but that could be something that happens if they overbuff map boss drops.
About buffing map boss drops, do you think Scriptorium is a good map boss and even map to like mold from? The boss is worth killing because it drops the Shav's item card, right? The Shavron's wrapping shit. Like if you have a boss like that, which isn't dropping like a Combs Heart 1 in 4 times, it's like almost.
Yeah, but then you have to do it with everything, right?
Yeah.
Is that necessarily a bad thing though? It's like they have this div card system, so there's a few ways they can do it. Either kind of like how Redeye says, they just go, we're putting the div cards more on the bosses than the random trash. So that way it's like, if you want to farm X item, obviously like people who play SSF, this is way more important than Trade League, but it's like, if you want, I don't know, a Tinker Skin, I'm gonna farm this map and this boss has a chance to drop it, I think that's kind of a cool system. Another thing though, which is like going back to the whole, if you over buff bosses, then you just zerg through the whole map. If like more monsters were scary, like imagine if all the rares were the power level of like Abyss spinny fellas, you wouldn't just like run past them because they would just kill you.
Yeah,
So
you'd never make it to maps.
You'd have to kill. You'd have to kill shit.
Play
Well, the
joke.
thing is, like, everybody's always like talking about how bestiary for the longest time felt like standard. Like, I feel like I understand that people have a problem with like boss loot and everything, but it's also, I feel like a lot of the boss difficulty and all that sort of stuff, like from map boss perspective, comes from just the fact that bestiary offers these things that are temporary, as far as we know, when it comes to like red and yellow beasts, right? That probably won't stick around, or will be in a different form, or will be less tanky because they do feel really out of place. But it's something to point that, yeah, this is a mechanic, like you're supposed to engage with this. Maybe it's a little bit overtuned compared to how much life map bosses have, but it's not like anybody was like buff map boss HP, a league ago, right? It just only feels weird in comparison to bestiary, which again, we don't really know how it's going to work. So in a way, I like it because it makes the league itself stand out. Although I already feel like the league stands out, but I also understand that to many people, it does feel like playing standard with the occasional, run past the red mob that has way too much HP.
Yeah,
I mean, sorry, I'll say this and I'll let you go on. You also do need to remember though, and Uber mentions this whenever he's on the episode, red map bosses are screwed though. Like, tier 15 Katava has less health than Act 10 Katava. So we're in this really weird situation where it's kind of like, white and yellow bosses are overly tanky and drop nothing, and then you finally get into the high pinnacle mapping, and now the bosses just fall over and don't have any health whatsoever. But alright, go on, Octavian, sorry.
I think it's because there's such a gap between the end game bosses and map bosses. Something like a Guardian or Shaper or even like Red Elder or something along those lines is just, it requires such a higher gear check than any map boss will require of you. So by the time you're up at like T14, 15 maps, because building a map pool to that point takes a while, usually you're like level 90, maybe a little higher than that, your character is basically done. And if you're a build that can handle bossing, you're probably trying to handle the legitimate bossing in the game. Not to be insulting to red map bosses, but the legitimate bossing in the game that's actually rewarding, like killing Uber at Zeri or Shaper. And so of course you can 1 and 2 tap the red map bosses that don't really matter that much comparatively. I mean, maybe the gap should be made smaller there by bringing up red map bosses rather than bringing down the T16s.
Well, it's kind of interesting because like for the longest time, I feel like they did a really good job now with like making that transition from like T15 and below into Guardians into Shaper in terms of like power creeping. I would say from a personal perspective, that's just about the only positive thing about power creep in my eyes, that yeah, you do a T15 boss, you know, like a medium power T15 boss, and it feels all right, and then you go into a Guardian and it still feels all right, where before doing a whatever red map boss and then going into a Guardian felt like night and day. Like it wasn't even like you could never do a Guardian with just like a regular build that
Yeah.
took care of
Before
map bosses.
the 2 times health buff they did.
Yeah. So I feel like they are doing a lot better with that. The problem lies with the loot, but then you've got the opposite problem of what Octavian says. Or maybe, yeah, the suggestion that, I don't know if somebody mentioned it now or if it was in chat, just buff up like, because like the yellow beasts feel really good to me. I don't know if like just yellow mobs would have that. I don't know. Maybe it would feel a lot less out of place. You
I
know?
don't think it's that much of a bad thing that yellow mobs drop a fuckload of yellows.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's cool too.
Especially
I like
since...
the yellow beast balance.
Yeah, no, go on. Sorry, Pohx.
No, I was just saying I like the yellow beast balance. I've really only played CI this league, so I don't know how scary the carpet bomb is. But in terms of yellow beast balance, I'm totally cool with them. Some red guys can be spooky though.
Yeah, I think they're good. Also, one thing I did want to quickly ask, and it's just one thing which I kind of find a little bit odd. I know we have a lot more endgame bosses than we had before, but do you remember when it was like core Malachi was like a big deal? That's the thing, is like when I think of like tier 15 bosses, it should be like, oh damn, that's going to be scary. Do you remember when Brine King first came out and Katava first came out? We were like, can you imagine how scary this is going to be once this is in maps? Can you imagine how scary Brine King's going to be with all these crazy map mods? And then it like came out and we were like, oh, never mind. So
Scaling's fucked in some
Yeah.
maps, like the what's it called, the waste pool boss does the same damage as the Act 8 boss.
Yeah.
Right, Dodri, it does fuck all in the actual map.
Yeah, it's actually true. Yeah, the wasteful Dodgery, she doesn't do shit. Actually, isn't the other Dodgery like way scarier? The
Support.
yeah, that one's actually like, she starts popping off. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was our random impromptu boss discussion. So, Pohx, what is a trap? What is a trap in 3.3? And tell us about trap identity, the spicy spice.
The spicy spice? Okay. So basically with trap identity, so do you want me to, how do you identify identity specifically? Do you want to talk about like the cooldown reduction basically being removed for fire trap and the 2 sides that people are kind of saying?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so essentially with fire trap and a bunch of other traps, like fire trap and lightning trap are having their cooldowns removed. And there's a big side of the community from what I saw that doesn't really like that, because they kind of think that what's the point of calling it a trap if it doesn't have a cooldown, and then you can just spam it just like any other spell. But then at the same time, like if you look at how far traps have come since the start of them, like don't take this away from us, man. Let us at least try it before you make it, like before you do that, right? This is just adding so much quality of life. Like it can change things on the tree. It can change just in general, like everything on your links. Like, I don't know, man. I want to try it. I'm excited. I want to see it.
Are you worried about lag? Like lightning trap with no cooldown, doesn't that sound like lag?
I built a new computer for PoE like a few months ago. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
okay, you're good. Thumbs up.
Everybody built a new
Oh,
computer.
I'm good.
Actually,
People-
same.
They're like, your computer's fine. I'm like, no, dude, 2K PC minimum for PoE. Like, that's just what you gotta do.
I think the one issue that might happen, just like following off of that lightning trap thing, is if they don't buff trap throwing speed. I can imagine a lot of new people who haven't played traps before, they just keep throwing traps faster than they are. I'm like, why isn't it doing anything? These traps feel terrible. That's the one thing I'm slightly worried about.
That's true, because trap throwing speed, well, that's basically what the big debate with mines and traps are. Since mines don't have a cooldown, mine laying speed is like a multiplier to your damage. Trap throwing speed is not, because you're limited, unless you have like, you know, Helm enchant, with like Ice Trap or Lightning Trap with the 2-second base cooldown ones, then you can just like spam like crazy, and that feels really good. But imagine if everything felt that good, or at least Fire Trap and Lightning Trap.
That's what I wanted, the 2-second base cooldown for all of the traps. It only makes sense. I don't know why only 2 traps have it.
Because they want you to use other traps in conjunction with those, and this will allow you to. You'll still have that weird spot if you want to play, a Cold Snap Firestorm Trapper. You're gonna have that long cooldown, but you could at least try Fire Trap, with no cooldown to spam, and have Firestorm for bosses, things like that.
But really, we don't know like if the supports that are coming in will give traps like a very unique identity. That could be something that won't be there by default, but it might just be something cool, like Blast Cascade for self-casting. Sure, not that many people are using it, but if you get something in that line of thinking for traps, maybe it's still gonna feel unique.
And there's also the other issue of Sabo not being that good for traps. Like, it straight up isn't. I'd rather be any actual damage.
Well, when was the last time you played Sabo though? Because the new Sabo is actually pretty
Start
spicy.
of last league, or was it start of this league?
Tarke's super debated. Tarke disagrees.
No. Okay, so
It's okay.
last league I played in Quiz. Lightning Trap, because the thing with Lightning Trap and Ice Trap, they're currently, if anyone doesn't know, 2-second cooldown currently, they're the only ones which, without really going too crazy in cooldown reduction, feel good, and you can get down to like a 0.7 recharge. So with those, yeah, play any Ascendancy you want. With the rework, though, both Scion and Saboteur get crazy regen, and I think that with the removal of the cooldown, if they don't change Sabo, everyone will play Scion instead. But getting 20% regen is nuts. Like, every time a trap triggers, you gain regen, and having perma-blind is really nice defensively. Like, it feels
especially
good.
Considering how difficult it is for trap builds to get recovery in the first place. There's not too many other options. So I think Sabo's like the quality of life filled option, I guess. You get a lot of like trap and mine related quality of life stats. You get the regen, you get sustain as a trapper without really having to think about it. Yeah, I don't know. Up until recently, because of the limiting cooldown, or up until I guess this coming patch, and because of the limiting cooldown, you had to get more juice out of each trap because you couldn't throw as many. So like you had to go a higher damage ascendancy if you wanted to get
They
good
straight
clear
up
speed.
don't work if you don't one-shot the pack. Good luck throwing 2 traps per pack. It doesn't work.
But you'll be able to throw 2 traps per pack now. So maybe that
play
makes
with a
Sabo a
staff.
better option.
Bro,
Oh,
just
shit.
equip a staff and have 2 things, and then you
Oh,
just
yeah.
like
Leap
move in slow
slam's the
motion.
best movement skill.
Oh, God.
Charge, dash.
One thing, so
Run.
I had a lot of arguments with my chat over the whole cooldown thing, because I agree with Pohx. I'm kind of like, can we at least try it first before we don't let it go through? But one thing which I think could be another alternative is back in beta, you used to also have multiple of the same trap, and they had different cooldowns. And that felt really good, because you could just have like 4 fire traps. I don't know.
I don't know.
I personally, I liked that, like, pianing, like, loads of different fire traps. I don't know why they don't try bringing that back, to be honest, because if they...
Because back then, the standard was a 4-link, dude. Nobody even played with a 5-link. You had a 6-link, you were, like, the top of the top.
He's right, because to be fair, I remember when I actually used to push ladder when I, wasn't anyway, but you just use a +2 scepter.
Shield and dagger, yeah.
+2 fire scepter with Eli... What was it? It was, like, fire trap, Eli prolif, and I don't even remember the last one. And increase burn, no, I don't know what it was. You're done. Like, you can clear, like, T5 maps. Like, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
but,
was
like,
you would have, like,
with Elder and
different
Shaper
setups.
items back now, though, because think about it. Like, with Elder and Shaper items, you have trap gloves, and you roll trap gloves because they give you throw additional trap. Then you've got, like, a 6-link in your chest, and then you've got, like, an Immolate Helm, Conk Effect, whatever. I'm fine with them just removing cooldowns, but if they wanted to keep cooldowns, I think a middle ground would be letting us run multiple of the same trap again.
Yeah, but wouldn't that feel awful? It's like
Why, though?
what Poison and Ignite's problem. It's like, well, unless you equip these items, you can't play this.
Mhm.
It's like you
It's-
want to play Poison, well, you gotta equip these items. You want to play Ignite,
It's
you gotta
the-
equip this. You want to play Traps, well, time to roll some Shaper items. It's like
It's a nice idea, but when you have to think about it, though, like any new person wanting to try it out, looking at it, it's like looking at a summoner for the first time, but they're looking at a trapper for the first time. Because I do like the idea of actually promoting and using, Shaped and Elder stuff for like a pseudo 6-link, because that's awesome. But to do it on the same exact skill twice, to have an AoE and a single target setup, can just be a little confusing for people at first. I don't think it's a bad idea. I really do like that, though. Like, I think that's an awesome, like, idea to have that ability. I just still think they would need a little bit more work, though.
What if they would just do? What if everything stayed the way it is right now, like with the same sort of assumption, but they just did that? Like traps don't share cooldown. We can have 5 fucking different fire traps. What if they just did that? Is there like an actual downside to it? I mean,
I don't know why you could do both. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Inconsistent with Enduring Cry for a start. Because that was changed at the same time. Like, Enduring Cry, you used to be able to equip 2 of them. You get 2 Enduring Cries.
Yeah, but war cries are like, I don't know. If
They're like their
anybody
own
associates
special
them.
mechanic.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but they were changed at the
can-
same
you
time, so they'd be
can-
inconsistent. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but like half of PoE is fucking inconsistent, man. Like you can't be like, hey, Path of
Alright, fuck
Exile,
it, we give up.
it ruined my consistency. But because it's like, so the way that people currently play traps is it's kind of like what most people do is they just say, I'm just gonna play Lightning Trap, and you get Lightning Trap down to a low enough cooldown that you just only throw Lightning Trap, and that's everything. Or you be Tholfos and you have your secret build that you won't tell anyone what it is, and you have like a cremation single target, and you have a fire trap and an ice trap because for some fucking reason fire trap is still a 3-second cooldown. I think if I was GGG, I would bring all of the... If they want to like remove cooldowns completely from all the trap skills, make fire trap, lightning trap, ice trap all no cooldown, bring trap support gem down to a 2-second cooldown, and maybe let us have multiple of the same traps again. Because that way, if you want to play like, I don't know, EK traps or whatever, you can have 2 different setups and be like, yay, I'm the EK trap dude, or you know.
There are so many trap builds I want to try, but the trap support gem being 4 fucking seconds just stops me from playing. Like, I don't want to have several setups because skills aren't all the same, and I like, if I want an EK Nova trap, nothing's going to compete with EK Nova trap. I can't go lightning trap, they don't scale the same. So like, I'm stuck with a really good AoE skill and then a less good AoE skill for the rest of the mobs that I can't kill because of the cooldown. Do you see
But
the
if
issue?
if they like throw in all this utility, then that kind of that then creates an identity problem for like self-casting, right? Because why the fuck would you ever like put points into cast speed, try and get all this stuff if you can just scale your trap cast speed way better, and you don't have to put yourself in the middle of a pack for something like EK Nova or Ice Nova or Shock Nova or anything. You can just put it on a trap, throw that shit, and then you're
I
safer.
mean, you still
And
need
leech
to
and on kill
invest
effects.
in like trap throwing speed, trap trigger AoE, and like you can't leech. I know leech isn't that big for casters these days, but trap throwing speed and trap trigger AoE is a pretty big limitation. Like, it doesn't matter what
really?
ascendancy you play. Okay, so
Sunblast.
you either go Sunblast 2 joules, or you go like Sab, and even if you're Sab, you still need to get trap trigger AoE somewhere. So it's like, that's quite a big investment. Having to use a belt means you're not using Headhunter, so the proper clear... No, but like... No, that's the thing, is like, would you rather use Headhunter or Sunblast belt? I know which one I'd rather fucking use.
That's the new barrier to entry. But yeah, like it's just a matter of moving the barrier to entry somewhere else. You know, moving the investment cost somewhere else, because cooldowns. I guess the argument here is that cooldowns just feel bad. You know, for a few seconds you can't play your build. So
I like it. It makes it unique. Sorry.
I like it too. I love cool.
Well, that's the counter argument. I'm just trying to, I don't know, frame this. I'm not necessarily taking a side. I don't play that many trap builds myself. I'm the third party in this, I guess. But yeah, if you move the barrier to entry, if you move the investment cost somewhere else, and then maybe traps can still feel like a unique playstyle, something of an investment. It's just a matter of finding where you can put that cost, which maybe that's in trap trigger AoE or something. I've never really felt the downside of having bad trap trigger AoE whenever I've played it, but I've always played Sab with the chain reaction, so I've never really given myself the opportunity to, I guess.
I feel like 60% trap trigger AoE or 40% is kind of like the sweet spot, just because that's that's kind of where like you throw your traps and you know there's like a hasted mob and you didn't aim it properly, but the mob runs right by it and it triggers a trap. So just like you have a little bit of flexibility if you kind of throw it or like desync or latency issue, like you can confirm that you're getting it. which you want to make sure when you're like mapping consistently 100 maps a day, like you want to make sure you're like, okay, that trap goes off. Because throwing 2 sucks.
Chad is laughing at me for the cooldown thing. I love cooldowns. I was looking at like that one game that's never getting released, Lost Ark, where you build
Ooh.
around combos and cooldowns. I think PoE could really benefit from something like improved Vaal skills and stuff like that, where you have 1 or 2 main abilities, and then you actually do something. Like if you've ever played totems, everybody's always like, "Oh, totems are this and that. They really suck." It's a really active playstyle. You have so many things that you can click. There's so many things to move around. I mean, the same thing goes for a summoner, right? So you still have your 1 or 2 main abilities, but you can just enhance your gameplay a little bit more by clicking that occasional full haste-like ability, right? And I feel like maybe something like that for traps does bring a lot of uniqueness to them, but at the same time, those cooldowns being just limited to traps is like so outdated. So I don't know.
I think
I don't. I guess my point is that I don't really mind. I would like to see a system with traps with either no cooldowns, but also something that I would still probably keep like the trap cooldown. Maybe not 4 sec like the trap support cooldown. Maybe not 4 seconds, but like 3, maybe 2, something like that. Where it wouldn't quite be viable, and you'd still have to like be. It would be annoying, but then it wouldn't create a problem for like just about any other ability in the game, right? If you're wanting to self-cast, which already, by the way, nobody does.
How
I
do
mean-
you feel? Sorry, I'll cut you off there, but like, I don't necessarily mind traps having a cooldown, but what I don't like, because this is what happens with most traps, is kind of like, if you're fully geared, so in the case of being non-sab, if you have a Tinker Skin, if you have maybe a cooldown recovery belt, maybe cooldown recovery boot, so you got some nodes in the tree, your build then works for mapping. Like, it's at a low enough cooldown. Or you play a sab and then you get all the other stuff. I don't mind traps having a cooldown if it's like, your traps have a cooldown and they feel good to use the whole way through, and as Octavian was saying earlier, the investment is somewhere else. I just don't like it where it's like, your build feels clunky until like level 70 or 80, once you can then equip all of this stuff, and then once you're locked into wearing all of that stuff, it removes like interesting items that you could be playing in the future. So if you want to keep a cooldown, that's fine, but then it should be like, the base cooldown is like 1 second or 2 seconds, and that's it. And for people who say, well, just put more like global cooldown recovery on the tree, then it becomes really dangerous for like Immortal Call and Cast on Crit and cheesing. So then if they say, okay, we'll just put more trap-specific stuff on the tree, then you have the issue which all trappers have now, where their trees look identical. It's like, I have to take this cluster here, I have to take this cluster here.
That's something I really hate.
Yeah.
But the point of view of the cooldown on the traps, the way I look at it is it's similar to like RF. It has a very distinct downside, but there has to be an upside that makes that downside worth it. RF clearly has that. It's very strong. Traps have that too, but they don't have the upside that's strong enough, maybe. And that's why
They
the
have an
cooldown
upside,
feels
but it's
super shit.
outdated. The upside is damage, which everybody gets enough of, right?
Basically.
So, yeah.
There's
It's-
another one. There's another one way back in the day in like Nemesis League before clear speed was like super crazy.
Any map mod.
Yeah, you'd skip like everything, like corrupted blood and this and that, like immune to this, like proximity shield, no problem. But again, a lot of that kind of got outdated as you just move on and on and on. I mean, now you just go into a proximity shield and just one shot it, and it's like, okay.
There's
That
just
was
a lot
scary.
more. There's a lot of balancing mechanics that were in place to keep traps in check with self-cast and mines and all the various ways of playing that simply don't exist anymore. This does not reflect rares anymore, and reflect maps can pretty easily be skipped by a lot of builds. Just costs a chaos orb or two, or you can just kind of ignore. And without that gate, traps seem less and less relevant. I mean, they have the last few leagues.
So how about what if they removed the trap support altogether? Like if it would be like a problem child and it's creating all these issues for everything else, and self-cast is fucked because of it. They just remove it, and instead now they focus on traps actually being like a separate subclass, like you actually are playing a trapper by just adding like 3 or 4 more just trap abilities. Like fire trap, now you're gonna have like shit trap or something. I don't know, whatever. They add like multiple different abilities, and it's still traps, but you can't use the support thing, or you just make it like non-viable. I feel like that would open up a lot more opportunities for them to just work on like the core aspects of trap without having to worry about fucking up the rest of the game. But I also understand
If
that.
they do that though, you end up in this really awkward situation where if they do that, they all have to have the same cooldown. Because we currently have the situation where it's like Ice Trap has not enough AoE, so it just doesn't feel good. Then Lightning Trap has the best of everything. It's got the best clear, it's got the best cooldown. Then you have
Well,
Fire
you have
Trap.
the new abilities, right?
Yeah, and they're
Just
going to
keep
make
that
some
in
new ones. And it's like Fire Trap has slightly better AoE than Ice Trap, but still needs more AoE. Does do pretty good burst damage, actually, but it's screwed entirely by the cooldown. And they have said that they're going to make some new ones. And one thing I'm also really interested in is it looks like they're changing the traps themselves for more identity. So Lightning Trap's going to gain like bonus damage against shocked enemies, and like increased crit chance. Fire Trap is going to have like an inbuilt immolate effect. They haven't said what they're going to want to do for Ice Trap. So that's one thing which could be really cool, is you make all the different traps and then they have this inherent, this makes this better. Like Bear Trap is going to be a more multiplier now. So if you throw Bear Trap on a mob, the mob then takes more damage from traps and mines. Like that's a really cool way, in my opinion, to like promote
I like
this
that.
trapper-centric playstyle.
Oh yeah, just to clarify, like I wouldn't want to take away like people's playstyles, right? If you really like Ice Nova Trap, just give us something that resembles an Ice Nova Trap. But when you want to scale your Ice Nova Trap through like the trap support, now you don't have to worry about, you know, Firestorm, Shock Nova, and like 10 other abilities that like fall in line with this. Instead, you still have this playstyle, but you don't have to balance around like 10 other abilities that you might link to it. Yeah.
I think that both directions are and like a way you can approach. I like your idea before, how you're talking about revisiting the trap cooldown support gem before you said this earlier. Because if you keep it the way they have it now, say they make the cooldown of Fire Trap, Lightning Trap, Ice Trap just 1 second. So instead of 0 cooldown, it's like 1 second. Because I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really need to be 0. Like you're not ever gonna need to hold right click on a boss with traps. Like, I mean, you shouldn't, at least, unless maybe like Lightning Trap or something. But say you keep it like that, right? And you make it so the trap support gem is more like 2 second cooldown or 3 second cooldown, and maybe even have some other bonus on it. That way you make having another trap like more appealing that has a longer cooldown, specifically kind of emphasizing on like single target or maybe just a giant AoE, just so you do have that variety in the playstyle. Because I like the idea, like you said, of being able to create whatever you want if you want to use an Ice Nova trap. But at the same time, they're adding in new skills specifically for traps because I think they want to push it into their own style for sure. Like a new player is like, oh, I like Ice Trap. Oh, at level 28, I get, you know, Ice Spear Trap. Oh, that looks so cool. Okay, I know that's what I want to play. But then, you know, still have that ability of that option of saying, oh, but I want a more AoE. Oh, I can get, you know, Shock Nova AoE, but, you know, trap version. So I think that would be cool.
Can we all agree, though, that the most annoying thing about traps is the trap and mine damage support gem having reduced fucking trap throwing speed on it? That pisses me off every time. It makes no sense. It's just like, hey, you know that stat which is kind of hard to scale and you can't get in many places? Yo, you know your one specific trap support gem? It makes your build worse. It's like, for fuck's sake.
I mean, that's also part of traps used to be the type of like scaling that had so many multipliers. Now you've got those multipliers for every skill anyway. So the gem is just like really outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking stupid. It's literally a slower casting gem.
I like Fox's optimistic thinking too when he's like, well, you don't have to have 0 cooldown. Nobody's ever gonna like check back in 2 years where everybody's just clearing a map with any build in like 20 seconds. And it's like, well, trappers are outdated now because they need no cooldown because 1 second is too long. Like, imagine if that's actually an issue.
That would suck so much. Well, you just think about it. It would. Like, if you died because you were, you know, like you ran into a pack and you just threw 14 fire traps at Abexoff, and then like you go to throw and you don't throw, and like 17 shield charge mob just smack you right in the face and you die, and you're just like, wow. And the last thing you remember seeing is this. Just that stupid ass cooldown, just like kind of flicker. You're just like, oh my, I died because of that.
Yeah.
Dude, so I've actually been playing a lot of trap builds this league, and one of the most frustrating things is it's like when when your build like starts to kick off, when it's like you're doing the proper Blood Aqueducts farm, you've just done your Merc Lab, you've equipped all your like end game gear, and you're going fast. The more geared I was getting, the worse my build was feeling because I was clearing too fast. So I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go, okay. And then it's like shield charge up to the pack, wait, dead, fuck you bitch, next pack. And it's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I had like, that exact thing with Redeye's Lightning Trapper back when like Ignite used to work. Redeye was like, "Here, you gotta
Fucking
pick up
missed that
some
build,
more.
dude.
Yeah, you gotta pick up some more like recovery." I'm like, "Nah, dude, I'm absolutely fine." And then like 3 levels go by, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I have like half too little traps." Like, yeah, that's really fucked.
It's like there's 2 obstacles, right? If you're not one-shotting, you're fucked. And if you're clearing well, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're in such a bad spot, man.
Well, they're working on it. We'll see. I mean, I'm really looking forward. However it's going to turn out, I'm really looking forward to it because no matter what, I think there's at least going to be like 1 or 2 things that are going to be really cool that come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Before we
Yeah,
move on, there's one other solution that we haven't talked about yet. What they could do is they could increase map density by like 100%, but also reduce the space between packs, so you've got a guaranteed 10-second window. So that way Mr. Trapper comes along, one-shots the pack, and has guaranteed 10 seconds to walk to the next pack,
Like that one
recharge
strand
all
layout.
their stuff, and throw again. Perfect fix.
Just walk into a map and you're just covered in mobs like this. Like, fuck, dude. I mean, the future of PoE. Goddamn.
Just clear Wasteland. Where there's no
Easy
fucking
fix.
mobs.
I wonder if the player base would be happy if GGG just like, yo, we haven't had time to like actually work on a league, so instead we're just increasing density by 300%. Like, I wonder if that is the league, the 300% density league.
Dude, that's what Beyond feels like when there's Beyond League. I love it.
Yeah, well, unless you're doing beasts, right? If you hit that yellow beast and that shit gets popped, whew. I was super.
One of
hard
my
about that.
favorite clips of all time is Redeye playing his Wander, walking into the waste pool, just like packed with Guitar the Heralds and getting one popped. Because it's literally that he just like can't move for mobs, and you see the Guitar the Herald fly through the air. You see a support nope the fuck out of the room, and he just gets clean one shot.
I got fucking Michael Jordan by that leap slammer. He fucking dunked me. These maps are fun though. There's so many mobs. It makes the game feel good, but you can't play that without a really good PC because it's not playable.
I'll be honest. Since I was always one of those people that was like, "Fuck PoE, you can never make it work." I have 0 issues since upgrading my PC. It's really worth it. Anybody who's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I want to wait for crypto to go down." Spoiler alert, there's always going to be a new crypto. Time to buy a new GPU, boys. It's so worth it. It's like the best thing ever, honestly. The only thing that you lag still in PoE, which is something that I always, like, it was kind of, you always felt like it was server lag, but I guess because I had, like, FPS lag, like, I feel server lag so often now. I don't know if it's, like, a matter of the builds that I play, but if you've got, like, a lot of pops, the server lag, like, really gets
Yeah,
you.
that's the only
Something
lag
that I
I
never
feel.
felt before. And like
Yeah.
that's like D3 problems. Like D3 had that issue, but PoE not so much. But now, yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yo, I want them to give Lightning Trap the Lightning Strike treatment with the less lag. That'd be fucking sweet. Because I think it's gonna lag like
but
shit
they
if
made
they release
Lightning
it now.
Trap too bright. Like I preferred the old color. It's too bright now.
It's
I don't
true.
really feel it. A lot of people say that it really fucks with your eyes, though.
I don't know if it's just me being a wimp, but there's something about like really bright blue. It's the one color for me which like screws me over, and it's so many games like it'd be really cool if we just say this whole level like fucking blue. And Harvey was just like, hey, let's just make really obnoxious bright blue things. Throw bright blue things at your face. Thanks, Pohx. I appreciate that, homie. But yeah, like the new Lightning Strike is just that slight shade too bright. How do you guys feel? We'll wrap this into like visual rework, into Vaal skill rework. How do you feel about the fact that there's still quite a few skills now, which I really want to play with Spell Cascade, but it's like, yeah, it's a bit too owie. Like Storm Call is always slightly a bit too owie on the screen. And there's the fact that Magma Orb is one of the most busted skills in the game, and the main
is it so
reason
fucking loud?
people don't play it is
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
Well,
God.
Shut the fuck up, skill.
It's also just the same noise your like graphics card make when you play Magmor, but it's just bursting into flames half the time, especially if you use the MTX for it.
Yeah.
And that's when watching a YouTube video.
I'm like, that's why I stay away from it. I can't do it. I know Tarke played it for like a really long time, and you
I
played it
played
with
it
the
for a long
MTX
time.
too.
I'm
It's like,
playing
way
it
to kill your
again
stream.
now. I'm now playing because SSF, by the way, single poet's pen, Magma Orb Elementalist. Dude, it pops. It's spicy with the Gloomfang. It like destroys stuff. But yeah, no, it hurts your eyes. It hurts your ears. Like people enter the stream. Hey, can you turn your sound effects down? Can you try it with MTX? Put MTX on. Okay, maybe it's worse. No, it's better. Wait, take the MTX off. I don't know.
That should be a. People always like, if you want to be a growing streamer, you're always looking for that one thing. You should just be a player that only plays that. You like play fucking Magma Orb with the MTX, then you switch into Lightning Strike, then you're playing Flicker Strike, so like everybody gets absolutely fucked, and then you've got like a bunch of 12-year-olds that are just hypnotized by this shit 16 hours
They're
a day.
addicted, man.
Hey man, shit.
I mean, they were falling out their chairs, but they left their stream on, so it's a win for
Yeah,
you.
exactly. If you can get all of your viewers to have a seizure, but they've got their Prime on auto... dude, can we get auto-renewing Prime? That way we can just, like, slowly kill off our viewer base, but they'll always be at their PC. That's the ethical viewbot right there. But yeah, so Vaal skills. There's been hints that GGG says there might be some reworks on Vaal skills. How do you guys feel about, like, the current use of Vaal skills, Vaal auras, etc.?
Oh shit, sorry. I
Wait,
didn't
there's
even
more
know
than
that was
two.
there. I didn't know
Yeah.
that was there. Sorry about jumping into it.
I would be super incredibly excited to see like more Vaal skills get more use, because I very often forget that many of them exist, and that makes me sad. I want a play style for Path of Exile that is closer to not being one button play style. I don't want to say like that having a one button build is bad, because that is something of the identity of an ARPG. You know, you run through packs and you fire off the same skill that you're heavily investing into, and it forces you to heavily invest into one skill to be able to combat the end game. But it's still nice every now and again, you know, when you come across that big fight that breaks up, you know, the pack to pack of a map, the bestiary rare or abyss or whatever it is, it's nice to have an answer to that, you know, other than, oh, well, I guess I'll walk backwards and shoot tornado shot like I do every other pack. And Vaal Haste and Vaal Grace are pretty much the only ones at the moment. I did see someone who was testing to see whether Vaal Double Strike Clone had the Death's Oath aura effect. So you could double your Death's Oath. I don't even know if they stack, though. Haven't played it myself.
No way. I
Can
don't
you
believe
answer
they
that,
do.
Box?
They shouldn't stack now.
Damn it.
No way, yeah.
No, like
I was
anything with the
hopeful.
same. Yeah, usually they don't like anything with the same. Will just override the higher one. Will take it.
I
But
got
anyways, yeah.
really disappointed recently because I was like, you know that thing where you're like, I kind of don't know what to play anymore. You can't sleep at night. You're feeling a bit depressed. It's just because you haven't got like a cool build.
That was me yesterday.
It hit me. I was like, hang on. If you put Vaal Fireball on a trap and use Kloss Trap, I'm like, holy shit, it's gonna be so cool. And then I like threw the Kloss Trap and only one trigger, and I'm like, oh no, never mind. Back to being depressed. Okay.
I had that feeling with the double trigger duels. Me and Havoc were like mind blown, dude. Double damage. It doesn't fucking work. It doesn't fucking work. It has to be underneath a mob for it to work. It doesn't make any sense.
No, I absolutely agree with Davian. I understand that, like, keeping it, that's why I wouldn't want it to be something, like, I think Vaal Haste was a problem. Like, everybody having to use Vaal Haste, otherwise you're inefficient. In a way, it added, like, a little bit of spice, especially in the cases of, like, Vaal Grace, right? Where you can keep up Vaal Grace throughout, like, with the majority of the builds out there, unless you've really fucked up your character, you can keep up Vaal Grace throughout the entire map. But you choose not to. And then when it actually bites you in the ass, you rip or whatever, you're like, well, I should just click that button and I would have been absolutely fine. And stuff like that just feels cool because it's essentially like a racing mindset, right? Like when you're racing, you have to cut so many corners to just try and get ahead of the other people. And in this way, like, you're cutting corners by not doing this thing that you could be doing, and it might punish you, it might not. It just, I don't know, to me it's just so much cooler, and that's the reason why I play so many like summoners and totem characters, because I need more of that shit, but it's unfortunately not available anywhere, especially in the case like the previously mentioned Vaal double strike, like the fact that you have to get a full set of links for that is like I don't know what they were thinking. Like even when that came out, it was ridiculous.
I don't know that the game is really in a spot where it can support that kind of, you know, cautious, multifaceted approach to a pack, because right now, with the majority of skills that aren't absolutely garbage, you can just one-shot most packs. Or, you know, if you can't, then you can one-shot half the pack and then one-shot the other half, and there's no real threat. You know, there's no reason to have a second button, because your first button does everything for you already. And anytime you just have, you know, another ability you might go to for this situation, well, there's no other situation that comes up that calls for that. You know, it's sort of the biggest gun fallacy. If you give a player a giant atomic bomb and then a bunch of other really cool guns, they're just going to keep using the atomic bomb to kill everything, you know, unless you limit that somehow. They're not going to go and use your other cool toys you've put in the game. They're just going to keep one-shotting everything.
I ran into that exact problem on the Perks Pen Elementus, because I've been playing so many traps recently. I've been used to this whole, like, get as many different setups as possible, use this for single target, use this for clear. So I'm like, hang on, Magma Orb scales the exact same way that Cremation does, and I've been so used to using Cremation for single target, so I'm like, dude, I've got this spare setup, so I linked up this, like, Elder, like, 5-link Cremation, shoved a Desecrate into my links, and then I realized the amount of time it takes me to set up the Cremation on bosses. I could have just pre-cast a couple of Magma Orbs, because of the way that the bounces work, that you can, like, just pre-cast all the bounces, then step, and then they just one-shot the boss. I was like, oh, I'm really glad I spent, like, 300 chromes on that item, getting that color. Oh, fuck. But how do you feel about... So one thing which has been irking me a bit recently, and I think it might be something they might need to fix or address later on. So we had this thing with, like, Vaal Grace and Vaal Haste, that builds which scaled skill effect duration were, like, too powerful. So then they nerfed Vaal Haste duration down to be, like, 3 seconds, and Vaal Grace is 6, if I remember correctly. How would you feel if they made skills like that not scale with duration? And that way they can kind of be, like, balanced around a fixed value, and you don't have this potentially problematic thing where you late online have this one build which synergizes very well, like the old, like, Animate Weapon. Like, a big reason why that was so stupidly powerful was, like, Animate Weapon was in a really good spot, Poison was in a really good spot, they scale ruled the duration, and then they had just, like, Palm of Vaal Haste, Palm of Vaal Grace. And then you have something like Lightning Warp, where if they ever make Lightning Warp good again, it's like, does your build use duration? Yes. You can't use this, get fucked. So, like, it feels like there are a few skills which shouldn't, like, scale off that stat, and it's just, like, a bit of a weird stat in general, like, increased duration. How do you feel about that sort of thing?
I agree. I mean, it falls in line with, like, it's one of those things that PoE stood out because of, like, how unique it was due to stuff like this, where you can combine, like, all these tiny things into something bigger. But it's the exact same issue that I mentioned earlier with, like, the trap support gem, where, yeah, this was really cool in the past and it worked in very interesting ways, but nowadays it kind of just bites you in the ass. But you can't really take it away, like, because then, you know, all the people who are like, my build diversity are going to come out and they're like, well, actually, I used increased duration with my Glacial Hammer build and it works because of this. And it's like, well, you can't really argue with that. You're taking away the shit from this player, right? Even though, you know, it might not make any sense. I don't know. That's just, I don't see it as a step that GGG would ever take. I feel like they like to either absolutely forget about it and just, like, sweep it under the rug and just leave it there and walk away, or they, like, address it by balancing things around it so that you also kind of forget about this thing that's, like, in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I think that absolutes like that, like just saying Vaal Grace lasts 5 seconds, that's it, no changing that, are much easier on the development team, obviously, but do sort of cut away at the, like, organic interplay of systems in Path of Exile that can give rise to things like, I mean, this is obviously very different, but something like the Elder Ring has never been, you know, that was not intended. That's multiple systems interacting. And as soon as you start putting absolute gated limits on systems like that, you limit the amount of interaction that those systems can have. And basically you limit the, I don't know, don't want to use the word because it's bandied about too much, but you limit build diversity. You limit the amount that people can customize their character. Duration is actually a stat that I was trying to scale on a very strange build that didn't end up coming to fruition this league, where I was trying to scale duration in order to scale Blade Vortex duration, scale Herald of Ash overkill burn duration, and phase run duration. And you stack up to 20 stacks, hit phase run, and run through the map, and overkill packs, and then the rares in the middle of the packs just die to the burn. Doesn't quite work, not enough duration in the game yet. But like something like that, if phase run just had a set amount of time that it works, wouldn't work as easily. Maybe for Vaal skills in particular, because they're so irrelevant to the current meta, they might just need that treatment in order for GGG to be able to up their power level without worrying. So maybe on a case-by-case basis that can be done, but I don't really think that as a sweeping rule, that's how we should approach Path of Exile. In my opinion, it's the interplay of systems that makes the game great.
Like, I can agree with you on that, but it's just, I think Vaal skills are one of those things where, and the reason why they've gone untouched for such a long time is it's kind of like they either dominate the meta or they're just not relevant at all. That's why I feel like, at least for Vaal auras, you can make all of them a bit more interesting, maybe introduce a few more, but you limit their power level. Because you also end up in a situation where it actually limits GGG's design space. Like, let's say you want to make a new unique, which gives a bunch of duration to, like, help out your weird, funky Herald of Ash build, but then, like, hang on, actually, if we did this, now this guy's got Perma-Vaal Haste, Perma-Vaal Grace, Perma-Vaal Clarity. Shit, we can't make that. So if you have it like, this is overly powerful, or we make it feel really cool and very unique, it can have that set power level, and then it opens up way more design space later on. And then it also means that you can then go in the opposite way. You can then maybe add more reduced skill effect duration on the tree, and that way, stuff like Explosive Arrow becomes more relevant, and it's not like, oh, you're playing Explosive Arrow or Lightning Warp or Stormcool, by the way, you're also making your Vaal skill worse. Like, that's something which is really annoying about that. It's like, you want to play a specific build which interacts around reducing duration. You have a similar thing with traps, actually. I remember a few leagues ago, I think around Breach or something, I was very excited about doing some wonky shenanigans with Blink Mirror Arrow trappers. So it's like, get as much duration as possible, but it's fine because I can use Sunblast Belt and 2 Jewels to get 100% reduced trap thing. Yeah, it fucks it. It doesn't work like that. Like, 100% reduced trap duration doesn't give it a set 0. If you have any increased duration scaling anywhere, it completely ruins your trap scaling. And then that also means stuff like you now can't play a Necromancer Trapper or whatever. And there's lots of like weird little sub things that, while yes, they enable builds, they also disable a lot of builds and future systems from being introduced. So while you would lose stuff, I think the development team would generally gain more, and it would just make it would be, like, I'm a fan of more things being good rather than let's keep this thing bad because that's how it's always been. Like, that's the thing which has happened with traps, right? It's like traps are potentially becoming really powerful, and people are like, no, don't touch it because you'll ruin my traps. And like, when was the last time you played traps? Oh, when Bladefall was good. It's like, right, so why are we keeping your build from 3 years ago relevant by keeping it shit,
I think it's like the Vaal skill thing. I think it's a matter of getting to, if anything, because in reality, like when Vaal skills got released, they were supposed to work the way we kind of talked about it earlier, where it's just something you add onto your build and it either works or it doesn't. And people generally approved of this because, well, when they released Vaal skills, they essentially released like 20 or 25 new abilities, right? So even if like half of them were shit, that's still like 10 new abilities. That's amazing. So people really enjoyed that. But like at this point, I don't know, do you guys think it would be beneficial if Vaal skills were just like a separate subclass, this way like necromancers and trappers and everything is, that you can still work it into your build, but it's actually got nodes on the skill tree and you can actually build around it in like a more major way, and you actually balance the skills around these new nodes rather than through like skill duration or like regular nodes. I feel like something like that would be cool.
I think if you could plug like 1 to 2 Vaal skills on your character and customize those, whether it's for yourself or for like a party scenario, because you don't want to limit that. I think that would be cool because I don't like the whole on kill, go, 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 on kill, go, 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 go. If I don't kill this pack of monsters, I won't have my Vaal Grace for that scary guy. I feel like it should be a little bit more reliable, but not 100% on. Like, it should be that moment like you're talking about, oh, I should have hit this here.
So
Am
like,
I the only one who lacks a real determining opinion? Because I've never fucking used almost all of the Vaal skills in the game ever. I've literally used like Vaal Grace, Vaal Haste, and sometimes Vaal Clary on like minors. That's all. That's my interaction with the Vaal skill gem system.
No, you played like Vol Fireball, right, and Vol Spark.
I guess that's true, but those are like retardedly big outliers compared to the rest of
Yeah,
them, right?
but they like work themselves into the meta due to like the strength of other things. Now imagine if those things could just be in the meta by being able to scale them through these like specific sources.
I don't know how you scale a skill like that. It just has so much more AoE than the other skills, and that was what was bad about them. So then they nerfed essentially the AoE and now the usability of them over time. Like Spark received like 4 nerfs in a row, then eventually they killed Spark, and now you can barely even use it.
yeah, like it's especially because of the fact that it's an on-kill effect that snowballs with going faster. It's like you hit a sort of tipping point where if you're not using the Vaal version of the skill, then you shouldn't be using the skill. I don't know. Maybe you take down the power level of Vaal skills overall, and then jumping off of what Raiz is saying, you do have separate modifiers that apply only to Vaal skills. So like you can even solve the duration problem that way. Like regular skill effect duration doesn't apply to Vaal skills anymore, but there's Vaal skill effect duration on items or maybe the passive tree, various places you can pick that up, and you can become a Vaal skill build. I kind of see problems with that, with like getting the first few kills in the map to get it snowballing, but maybe that's your downside. You have to figure out that issue of how do I kill the first 2 packs and then just face roll the rest of the map, and it creates that that play style that people might have really liked from Vaal Spark and Vaal Fireball without making it the only option, and making it so that self-cast Spark or self-cast Fireball is irrelevant. I don't know how many people were actually playing that.
No, I think there's many skills. Like, I mean, even off the top of your head, like if you're just talking about new skills, right? The most that they've released like new active skills was like 3 in a league, I think. Well, now if you just look at the like how much the foundation for something like that is set, it's like Vol Spark, Vol Fireball, Vol Arc, Vol Ice Nova, even sure Vol Melee Splash, even like maybe even building around somehow with some sort of degen or freeze or something with like Vol Glacial Hammer. I feel like there's a lot of skills that could work because they've got that foundation, but yeah, obviously it would require a lot of effort from GGG, but if they can make it work, they can target like such a large amount of skill gems that even if like half of them don't work again, it would still probably be enough. Vol Flame Blast, hey. Vol Puncture, what is that?
Interesting, potentially bad idea. Sorry, Red, I'll let you talk in a second. Like, I think a lot of people agree that, like, Vaal Reeve, because that's one which comes up a lot in chat, like, that's good design, because it's like you're playing a Reeve build, and it combos well into it, and it's not, like, degenerate. One thing they could maybe do is, if they try to do it so Vaal skills, like, if you want to play a Vaal build, you can, but it's kind of like a combo build. Maybe they could have, like, a set, like, generator skill? So it's like, this is your generator skill, and this is, like, your big spender, so it's kind of like Vaal skills kind of became, like, detonating skills or like ED. It's like you're then playing like a combo build, and that way all different Vaal skills can behave differently, and because of that you don't end up in a situation where like you just Vaal Spark everything. Because if there's some kind of like you have to use one thing to generate, another thing to spend, you can't always just be spending. And as you keep saying, the problem you have is that the more on kill style things you make, over time they become problematic. It's like flasks are really problematic now because they're always active. If you made like Esh's mirror back in beta, it'd be a terrible item. People would be like, lol, I've got like 1 extra lightning damage when I kill 1 rare every minute. It's like when you keep introducing things over time, the game keeps getting faster, it's like, now it's a big issue. So if it was like this weird like combo thing, or use it to like enhance other skills, then it can't ever like bypass a set power level. What were you going to say, sorry, Redeye?
I was going to say, looking at Vaal Reeve and using that as a template for further Vaal skills, I don't actually like that idea, because it's essentially threshold dueling more skills. Like, imagine if Glacial Hammer was now playable because there was Vaal Glacial. Well, there already is. Fuck, bad example. Well, I forgot that fucking thing even existed.
Can't blame
Like,
you.
Elemental hit.
Vaal Elemental hit. All of a sudden, it hits the entire world when you use it. Like, does that really fix the skill itself? Because then it's now usable because it has a Vaal Reeve-like Vaal skill for that skill. Like, it's not really solving the issue. And now you're using a mandatory gem, which is even more fucked for SSF in a way because now they've got something else that they need. And this doesn't seem like a good solution for it.
Well,
I can see how it would be a decent solution just because yeah, people do like Vaal Reeve, but I personally dislike it too.
I'm the same. It's like more blood pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know if the comparison to a threshold jewel is quite apt, though. I think you're right to compare it, but it's not quite the same because Vaal Reeve does at least require the input from the player to time the Vaal Reeve correctly and to keep up the stacks and that sort of thing. So I think it's a bit better than a threshold jewel. I still don't. I agree with you that I don't like you have to use this for the skill to be good. I'd rather just the skill be good. But if they're gonna choose between a Vaal skill enabling something and a threshold jewel enabling something, I would take the Vaal skill every day because it's it's more thinking. I have to pay attention more to the game. I want to play the game, not ignore the game while I read Twitch chat or something.
I think that it's kind of easier to like break it down into like defensive skills and like offensive skills, because if you look at defensive, it's a lot easier to balance or to pick like a defensive thing, Vaal skill over an offensive one. It's really hard to fit in Vaal Glacial Hammer into a build, but it's really easy to say, hey, do you want Vaal Grace, right? So I think there's nothing wrong with focusing more on the utility aspect of them rather than trying to make every single attack version or spell version viable in terms of like screen-wide AoE or actually have a use on a boss. And then from there they can like kind of work it out. But I guess it really depends on what direction they're choosing to go in.
Since threshold jewels got brought up, one thing I'm really interested in how they'll handle it is the fact that going back a year, if we want to buff a skill, we buff it by making a threshold jewel. Whereas now it looks like if you want to buff a skill, we're reworking the skill's core identity. Like that's what it looked like from the first skill rework they showed of like we're going to change cold snap to work like this now. And we'll have the volcanic package, and we'll have this bullshit. So I'm actually really curious on, have they given up on threshold jewels, do you think? Or are we going to have this...
if the trap change was threshold jewel.
Yeah, like, there's lots of weird stuff like that, where it's kind of like... Because they made a fire trap threshold jewel in the beta, whereas like when you threw a fire trap, it threw another fire trap, but then they didn't release it. And then they did the thing with the split arrow threshold jewel then turned into volley. So it looks like they kind of like had this change in development where it's like, okay, we don't like this idea because certain streamers keep bitching about it on podcasts, which because I think most people don't really like threshold jewels. But now we're going to be in this weird situation where in like 4 years' time, we now need to rebalance all the skills with threshold jewels to be as good as the skills which are good without the jewels now. Because that's another weird thing where it's like, oh, you want to play this build? You now have to have these jewels in these places on the skill tree. Blah.
I mean, I think they were trying to avoid the exact issue we were talking about earlier. Like, threshold jewels are so much easier to control than, like, one support that addresses, like, such a large group of skills. So, in a way, if they would have multiple threshold jewels, they could balance, like, individual skills and make them interesting, rather than, like, oh, we can't actually balance this because instead, like, now Flame Blast is fucked or something. So in that way, threshold jewels would work, but it doesn't seem like they can work upon it from this point on because, I mean, they would have already done it, right? And even then, they still turned away from like the split arrow thing and turned it into a barrage, which affects a large portion of builds. Or not
Like,
barrage, volley, sorry.
It's the same thing that we talked about earlier with like the duration affecting traps and all that. It's balanced by specific example where you gate Vaal skills to having a certain timer and that's it. You gate magma or gets the additional chains or AoE on chain or something like that from the threshold jewel. Like you can lay out certain numbers. This is how magma orb works now if you use the threshold jewel, and that's it for specifically magma orb, nothing else. It's really easy to pinpoint that point of balance. but it's a lot less interesting, and it opens up a lot less from the player base. You know, you're not going to have cool interactions like you do with volleys. So I want to see more systemic balance, more ancestral calls and volleys, because that makes more interesting things happen, even if sometimes it's broken. You know, I'm actually okay with something being overtuned or undertuned on release if it's interesting. I want more interesting things in the game than I do, you know, just a threshold jewel that makes the skill usable and it's usable in this one way. That's, I don't know. Maybe that's asking too much. Maybe that's a problem that really
Life
can't
Poacher
be
was
approached.
interesting, right?
Li-
Life Poacher was interesting. You
Like-
could approach it from many different ways. Do
Sort of.
damage, not do damage, get abyss jewels,
Show yourself
curse
on
with it,
reflect.
kill yourself on reflect. Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Uh, stuff.
I don't know. Light Poacher is kind of an example of a single point of balance, but I really want more systems added to the game, because, as I said earlier, I think Path of Exile is at its best when you're taking all these diverse systems that maybe weren't even meant to interact with each other and finding some weird way in which you can, you know, turn them against one another that maybe the developers didn't even intend.
On that topic, sorry, Pohx, how do you feel about Summon Phantasm and Arcane Surge, like, messing the scaling of everything? So, like, Pohx's build, use Arcane Surge, gain duration tag on your skill, you now use less duration. If you link Summon Phantasm on an attack, you can now link it with Arcane Surge, so you can do, like, Arcane Surge shield charge and stuff. Like, how do you feel? Do you want those interactions to stay and for those to keep happening? Or is it like, no, this is broken, let's delete?
I think it's
So-
cool as fuck.
Yeah, so I have like two sides of it, because I always think of like the new players, because that's kind of just always where my focus has been, is like how can people figure this out. But it also you want it to be fun, because you want to figure it out. I like interactions like that because, yeah, they may be broken for some things that are meta, but it enables, keyword, it enables really weird builds to actually work, going back to like the whole duration thing as well. It brings life to things that you normally wouldn't ever figure out how it would work, and then it makes some things too OP. But I think that it's a template for something, just like threshold jewels, for something in the future they could fix. But this specific quirk, I don't really know how it is with Phantasm. I haven't seen it go crazy, but with Arcane Surge, it's been pretty okay. So I guess I haven't seen like the full extent of it, but I kind of like it, to be honest. I kind of like some of the mystery stuff.
Yeah, I like the fact that you need like a 5 link, or else you have to sacrifice something. Like, you've got faster attacks and fortify with your shield charge. Now you need 2 more links to do the Phantasm shit. So you're either giving up faster attacks, you're giving up fortify, or you're getting 5 link gloves. Like, there's some thought going into this shit. It's not like everyone is Arcane Surge now. Like, I think it's decent.
It's like, I don't know, a lot of these systems again fall out of place eventually. That's the big problem, right? That like the way things you can attach things and you can like address large groups of things was such a benefit before, right? Like that's how PoE was advertised. It's like, you've got this ability, now you link chain to it and it does these things. That was like a cool thing, because not only was it unique back in the day, but also it's what PoE is at its core, which is like reusing the same assets in a way. And this way you can like do one thing that now changes all these things. But at this point, things become so unique and there's so many different interactions that, I don't know, I feel like they slowly need to start addressing like individual things, and then we won't have such a big problem if there isn't as much crossover. Sure, would I like to get rid of what you guys mentioned with the shield charge? I mean, probably not, but I feel like if we group these things a little bit better, maybe you can keep them without like addressing the other things that are becoming an issue. But obviously that's some like absolutely next level glowy brain shit.
It's
that is
so convoluted though, like
yeah.
Like it's really cool, but okay, so with the whole thing of if you put Summon Phantasm on a skill, it gains the spell tag, so now you can link it with Arcane Surge. Decoy Totem by default has the spell tag. You can link it with faster casting. You can't link Arcane Surge to Decoy Totem. It doesn't even give the Decoy Totem Arcane Surge. So there's these still like weird in-betweeny inconsistencies.
Well,
and
that,
it's also,
that is consistent
But
though.
it doesn't work with totems. Arcane Surge doesn't.
Arcane Surge doesn't work with totems. So it's
okay,
consistent.
okay, that's me being dumb then. But it's kind of like, I kind of like it, but at the same time I don't like it. Like, I made a video, like, when I first sort of, like, started making content back in, like, Breach, I made this video called, like, why Path of Exile doesn't make sense. That was me talking about, like, the whole burning arrow restoration meme. And it's kind of like, I'm not sure, because on the one hand we're like, we want this game to be approachable for new people, we want it to make sense, blah 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 blah, but like, so I fucked that up because I'm like, oh, but that should work because something else doesn't work. Going back to that example, it was like Mathil playing a burning arrow build, his best support at the time due to double dipping was restoration, and he didn't know it worked like that. So like, when you have people who like play the game for a living, not really knowing how these mechanics work, how the fuck is the average dude meant to know how it works? How the fuck is like...
I mean, do they need to?
I mean, but like...
Look at metacrafting. It's that problem times a fucking million.
Equip gems and pound monsters, dog. Like, whatever you figure out later on, then that's like up to the developers. But I think the game works from like what it wants to accomplish, and accomplishes from the very beginning in a decent fashion.
I think there are... sorry, go ahead, Tarke.
Okay, I'll just very quickly say, I would agree, but you also have the issue that people say, well, just use the wiki. The wiki's out of date for like 90% of the stuff.
Wiki's so shit. Use
But
the
that,
wiki,
it's like, literally, it's what you do. It's like, you ask Carve. When I made that burning arrow video, to give you an example, there's a dude on Reddit called like Agnog or some shit. He was convinced I had this long-running conspiracy that I was like not adding stuff or deleting shit from the wiki to keep secrets to myself so that I could then gain popularity by making videos explaining the mechanic. And at that point, it's like, what the fuck is this shit? If you explain a mechanic, you're a conspiracy theorist trying to gain views. And then it's like, the wiki makes no sense. So like, where the fuck?
He's taking our knowledge, dude.
Sorry, go on. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, Raiz, on your point that like you equip gems and then you bash monsters as a new player, you know, you don't have to know these things. There are some things that, you know, are very impactful that the game doesn't make clear to begin with as well, and, you know, might actually be a roadblock in your progress. One of the changes that happened, I think back in Harbinger now, was Blight still has the area tag, scales off of area for AoE coverage, but is a degen applied by an area skill and therefore doesn't scale off of area damage. Everything in the game will point you towards Blight scaling off of area damage. If you're a new player and you look at the skill gem tags, which the game tells you to do, Blight will say, hi, I'm an area skill gem. Click area nodes in the tree. I'll get better damage. Doesn't happen. Conk effect will just make it shittier without giving you any upside.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that I feel needs to be culled from the game. Not necessarily the summon Phantasm on kill gives you arcane surge sort of shit. Like, a new player is never going to find that, not really going to be impinged on not finding it. It's no big deal. But if a new player is trying to use Conk effect to kill their map boss with Blight and is giving them nothing and making them, you know, be at more risk because they're up in the goddamn boss's face, that's pretty crap.
Yeah, that's why I said decently enough.
Okay. Covered your ass.
I absolutely agree. Of course, yeah.
Now, if Tarke didn't change the wiki, we would all know.
I'm
Tarke's
sorry.
just fucking with the wiki day.
That Blight thing, though, like, I've had that exact same thing because I played Blight in Turmoil, and the amount of times I had to explain to people why I routed through the Blight AoE, but not the Blight damage. Like, I imagine that's a very Pohx level thing where it's like, read the screen, watch my video, stop asking me the fucking question.
I played Blight to 100 in Breach, and I'm level 98 in this current league with Death's Oath Blight, so I know all about that skill, trust me.
Nice.
Yeah, I think, I was just going to say, PoE definitely has a lot of stuff to work on, but like the Arcane Surge stuff, I think can just be left alone while they fix more things like Ball Lightning, and Ball Lightning doesn't scale off area damage either, right? Hey, shh. But it does scale with like AoE, I'm pretty sure, right? Anyone here?
There's no area damage, but it does get AoE.
Yeah, Ball Lightning, yeah.
Maybe there needs to be like a separate tag for that, because that's two examples now of a skill that gains AoE but doesn't gain AoE damage. It gets pretty nitpicky, but you know, that's the kind of thing that the game does have to tell you. It's pretty key to.
I mean, it's not
building
that
your
complicated either. It's just put it in the fucking thing, right? You can have the tags and just say it does not scale through.
I mean, the tooltip literally doesn't change too.
How do we feel about advanced tooltips? Now that we have advanced, like, item descriptions, what if there was, like, an option you could turn on, which is kind of like, you turn on and now the skill gem tells you what it actually fucking does? Like,
I mean, they they did something like that. They changed it from like just DPS to like damage per hit. So we'd be asking for them to change it again.
That's a bit much, Tarke.
That's. I do like that idea. I think that would be cool, where you could see the breakdown of your skill, and maybe even like linking up your buffs, like with potential like frenzy charges or this or that. But we've got third-party stuff for that.
Okay, well, to move on before we spend another like 3 years talking about Blight. So, Battle Royale, best game mode. Agree, disagree?
I'm holding up my thumb. You can see it, right?
Yes, massive thumb. Well done.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, Battle Royale was really fun. I mean, especially since they're saying like, oh, we're gonna balance it now. I mean, shit, I can see it being like a really, really legitimate thing in PoE. It's fucking better than Lab, I can tell you that much. Shit.
Who knew
Would you want it as a
PvP
Leo
was
daily?
fun?
What did you say, Pohx?
I was saying people were asking for it as like a Leo daily. What do you think about that?
Oh, that would be
It would be.
nightmare.
I think the problem if you put it on
Yeah.
Leo daily, less people would do it. I've actually had to fucking do Leo dailies because SSF. By the way, I've been playing CI, so I need the ES recharge. So like me and Zai, it's kind of like, hey Zai, do you mind coming to San Arena real quick so I can 1v1 you, bro?
Doing some win trading.
Otherwise, it's like six hours of just.
Yeah.
I mean,
doing
it's like
some
it's
good
like
win
the
trading.
thing. It's like the thing when you go to school, right? And they tell you to read a fucking book, and you're just like, Lord of the Rings, lol, idiots, I'm not gonna read it. And then 6 years go by, and you're like, oh, I want to read Lord of the Rings. And then you actually read it, and you really enjoy that. I feel like that's what Leo dailies do to people. So if it was like an actual Leo daily, you'd just be like, no, fuck that shit. I don't want to do that, even though you'd have to, right? But then somewhere down the line, if you don't need Leo, hell yeah, you'll do some Battle Royale.
I mean,
Unless it's an extra thing, like you do Battle
would be
Royale,
extra,
and then on
for
top
sure.
of
Yeah.
it, yeah.
I'm not gonna limit it. It would just be like, hey, do you need a level Leo? Here's a funner way to more fun. You know?
I'd always have my Leo daily done then. Hell yeah.
I might be the odd man out here because I'm fine with Battle Royale being a part of the game, and I don't hate it. I don't want it not to be included in any of that. I'm fine with all this. I just didn't really like it very much myself. I don't know. Sorry, he's pulling a face at me. I generally don't play very many PvP games. I'm not a very competitive person. It's one of the reasons why I like Path of Exile. I like, building my own character, just going off my own little PvE world. So I played it a few times, didn't do very well, and left. I don't know. But I think with proper balancing, it could be a lot of fun as a one-off thing, and they could take a cue from some other games like, a lot of MOBAs actually do it. I think Dota, League, and what's Overwatch's MOBA? I don't remember the name. Overwatch's MOBA, Blizzard's MOBA, Heroes
of the Storm thing.
Yeah, even Overwatch does it actually, I think, where they have like a weekend event that rotates through a bunch of different crazy game modes. And because it's only every weekend, and because it's, meant to be a not so serious game mode, it doesn't have to be amazingly well balanced because it's not really meant to be that, So that could take some of the load off for the balancing issues.
Well, the thing is, like, this works. Like, as long as it's not part of the core game and as like a side thing, I don't know. I feel like it works really well under any circumstances. Obviously, if you always have it in the game, then eventually you're going to get to a point where it's going to be like 10 people in Battle Royale, and you're going to spend 6 years to look for each other because, I mean, it's bound to not be as popular, especially like 2 or 3 months into a league, right? But like, if it's just a separate thing, I think it's worth the effort. I don't know. I thought it was very successful, and if they actually balance around it, like certain things around it, I can see it being. I mean, they're always like GGG's always like through lab and like all these different things. They're always looking for the next thing to innovate Path of Exile. I feel like that's something that leagues really do well. And I mean, it's not particularly innovative because there are Battle Royale games out there, but in an ARPG setting, yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, if I were to compare it to Lab, and let's say they introduced Lab and they introduced Battle Royale as a separate thing, not necessarily like in the core game, you don't have to do these things, but they're separate, and I'd have to choose between Battle Royale and Lab, I think Battle Royale would be a little bit more popular, So that's like the biggest indicator that it is a successful idea, right? nobody, like when Lab got released, nobody was like, ho ho ho, hell yeah, time to push ladder. It's like, you know.
Yo,
Do
if
you remember? I was
Sorry.
gonna say, does everyone remember their first kill really fast, or their first win? If you have a win, I'm just.
I won my first game, got like 20 kills.
Do you remember the
So,
first skill that you used?
Yeah.
Like, what was the skill that you won with?
Uh,
Like, your first win.
it didn't end in arrow and start with S, but like
Okay.
to be fair, most of that game was using puncture.
That's fun. What
But-
about you, Redeye? Oh, sorry. So I just
Oh.
wanna. I
No,
just
no,
wanna-
I'll come back
okay.
to it because I
I'll
see what
use-
you're doing. I'll come back to you, Amy.
I
Okay.
literally used Frostblades the entire event.
Raiz, do you remember what you played as your first win?
I only used freeze pulse the entire event, pretty much.
Okay. I sniped someone with Frostbolt for mine, but everyone knows the first skill they use. That's a really good sign of a successful thing. If you told me what was the first map I ran this league, I don't know what the first map was that I ran. Like, I don't remember the first red beast I encountered. I know it was probably scary. I don't know what it was exactly. So that's good
But
if it can,
That's
like,
a fair
keep
point.
That freshness is something that you'd want to maintain. That's why I think it,
Mhm.
you know, would do really well as a timed mode that shows up maybe every week, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe probably not every month. I think that would be a bit too infrequent. Because by the end of the event, and it was only a 24, 36 hours, something like that, I was getting people in my Twitch chat saying that it's getting really stale and it's horrible, and they don't like everybody running around with split arrow and knowing exactly, you know, what to rush for and what skill gems to ignore and what to pick up, and all the loot filters are already put together and perfectly tailored and all that. And so, I mean, Path of Exile is a game full of players who want to optimize everything to the nth degree. So I think you have to limit the time spent in that mode, or have some really significant balance changes for PvP, because it wasn't in a balanced state. I'm not too critical of them for that, but I wouldn't say it was in a balanced state at all.
Yeah, sure.
Unpopular opinion, the skill balance wasn't actually that bad, and people who thought Splatter was overpowered were just bad at PvP.
It was honestly pretty
Frostblades
good.
was so much better. Frostblades
two
would murk
things.
people.
Split arrow was absolutely fine, except Cool Rain. Like, Cool Rain
Yes,
was the
that I'll
only
get behind.
exception.
Yes,
True.
100%.
To be fair, I didn't play it much. This is hearsay on my part, but
I think Crackhead
I mean-
is really crazy. So.
Crackhead was good as well. It's perma-stunning people. I think the issue, because what you said, Octavian, I had 100% in my chat as well, but it was that was the one time which I really felt the Reddit problem. So, like, the Reddit problem is, like, the people who are complaining aren't playing the game. The people who were
Holy
complaining about Battle Royale weren't playing Battle Royale. Because I had loads of people who were like, yo, man, this is so unbalanced, this is whatever, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, how many wins did you get? And they're like, oh, I gave up after my second game. You know.
Dude, I'm having fucking flashbacks to like 4 years ago when PvP used to exist as well. Holy fucking shit. People who don't play, who don't want PvP to exist, and get PvP fucking removed.
Yeah.
It's basically it.
Yeah.
Just let it
It-
exist.
It's the same kind of thing which you had with, like, WoW, insert, oh my god, Tarke comparing this to a Blizzard game, But it's kind of like, oh, we must kill world PvP because I just want to do my quests, I don't like getting ganked. And now, actually, with the new expansion, they're doing this thing where they've got these special, like, go-in servers. It's like, you should be kind of enabling this stuff. Like, I did a 17-hour stream, and I started streaming, like, I think 2 hours. I probably did, like, 15-ish hours of Battle Royale. Of that, I spent a couple of hours messing around trying to do different setups, and in the end, I had 22 rower dinners. So not loads, but, like, that's a pretty fair amount. And it was one of those things of there was actually a lot of skill in there about when do you use Frostblades, when do you use Split Arrow, when, like, Freeze Pulse is really good early on. One thing I used to do a lot was, like, I would have a Frostblades and I would weapon swap into a bow. So, like, I could get close to someone, just, like, insta-kill them with Frostblades. Frostblades was, like, the best thing if you got a level 1. The main issues they had balance-wise, and I spoke to Uber about this quite a lot in his stream, was the way the island itself was laid out. If you are on the side of the island with the doggies, you're screwed. And that's because
Yeah.
the doggies, you're balanced around having cold res. So it's like, that was messed up. And also, there weren't enough, like, ledges. So sometimes it's like, you just happen to be on the wrong side of the island. As the zone shrinks, you just can't get next to the next platform. If they really were to rebalance it, in my opinion, it'd be like, change the core layout, change the mob types, and then limit some of the uniques. Core Rain was OP,
Two more things.
Craghead was OP, but skills were fine.
Stop
Gold
being
rim
able
was
to
a
see
big deal.
players on the map. Players on the map is an issue because it lets you off screen really fucking easy. And on top of that, let us see the safe zone. Nobody knows where it is until you're in it. Like, that's fucking dumb. You could be 10 miles away, you could be 30 seconds away. Like, you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, these are all issues that I think they're fully aware of, and I mean, they should be addressed. I mean, the cool thing is like the starting skills aren't particularly interesting, but they look like if all the skills would allow you to get by, and for the most part they did, to like get into the inner stuff, like the level 4 and 8 skills is really where the fun starts. Like 8 is support, so I don't know if that's like particularly enabling, but things like Cold Snap or like Frostwall, it was like my favorite thing in the world if I would get a Frostwall and I'd be in a final 1v1 with a split arrow dude and I just see him fucking shitting his pants because I'm putting out a Frostwall in front of him and he's never seen that before and it's just like, how do I kill this dude now? So that was like really fun, and I feel like maybe even like reducing some of the higher level like interesting abilities that allow you some sort of form of crowd control to like these lower levels so that you can play around with them. Not necessarily things like Cold Snap because obviously it's like boom, guy's frozen, kill him. But like Frostwall specifically, I felt was extremely interesting because for the most part, like every single starting ability plays the same way. Where if something's around the corner, you can't get it. The only exception, I guess, being Frostblades that apparently has some sort of bug now, right? Frostblades, you can like attack chests and it's going to release the blades.
That's
So
always been like that, but like that actually goes on to my favorite part was proper siege ballista placement. So because I would mostly open with Frostblades, then go into bows. Siege Ballista 1v1ing Frostblades is like one of the most like intense, skillful things you can do. So you can drop the totem. If you do it wrong, Frostblades dudes attacks the totem and kills you off the totem. If you do it correctly, you can like zone people out and push them into the open. Because what would often happen if you were playing bows against Frostblades, Frostblades just hides in a corner like he has to come to me, and when he does, I one-shot him. So what you would do is you drop the Siege Ballista at the right angle that it pushes him out while you pillar hump LOS role-playing arena, and you just kind of do this going back and forth and you slowly push them around. Like, that was so much fun. And there was like so much more skill in it than people were giving it credit. From like being bows, being freeze pulse, like the whole thing with the freeze pulse again was like, it was quite similar to Frostblades, like, let me hog this LOS, try and push him in. There's a clip of me being like stream sniped by my friend Kane, where he got split arrow off the beach and I didn't have it yet. And he chases me for 4 minutes and I'm like literally zigzagging in between his shots. And I'm like losing my shit. You can see me, I'm like, like role-playing Neo IRL and stuff. And there was like so much like skill to like knowing how to sidestep stuff. If someone was good with ice shot and you just got like randomly one shot because he could land ice shot, like that was so good.
If someone gets me, like, fair play. They fucking got me.
Did you know you can actually block split arrow with SRS? That's what I had to do for the longest time, was just like SRS in front, SRS in front. Until, what's the piercing one? The lightning one that just pierces? That kind of like ruined
Shrapnel
all.
shot.
Yeah, that was unfun. You just like crit dead. I'm like, well, okay.
Monk
Did,
but that's cool too because like
Yeah,
sure
you
you're
switch
blocking
on
the
the
shots, but you're like blocking the shots, but then the other person's getting flask charges off of you, and in like a prolonged fight, they get a Quicksilver. Who, what does it matter if you can block your shit if he just runs away, right? Or just creates enough distance with the Quicksilver charges. So shit like that is really really cool.
Did any of you play, sorry, I'll let you go on, but did any of you play, like, really early League of Legends? The one thing that reminded me of a lot is you used to be able to block Rammus charge with wards. And that was kind of, like, one of those things where it's, like, knowing, okay, when do I stop, when do I block the projectiles with stuff? I don't know, sorry, go on.
I was just saying I want to play it now. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
I'm being more convinced to go give it another try. If there were a healthier, like more consistent PvP game mode in Path as well, that would open up the option for GGG to actually design towards that too. Because a lot of uniques are not designed with PvP in mind. Obviously, things like Quillrain and Craghead, and I'm sure there's plenty of others that you guys could complain about as well. So they could design uniques with PvP in mind. Maybe not even have them drop in the main game, just have them drop in BattleRoyale. And, you know, you're opening up this whole new world, I guess, of design space, and that's really cool. I would
It's
give
scary.
it much more of a try. It's scary. What scares you, Raiz?
It's scary because from a personal point of view, like I don't mind either way. I mean, I'm playing PoE for such a long time. I'll continue to play, but it does invite a lot of Xbox ruined Path of Exile opinions. So I don't know if putting like the best thing that GGG does, and they're really smart about it nowadays, is like putting just enough effort into certain things without the community really realizing how much effort went into it. Because if they make it like a big thing, they've been met with so much like anger from the community from just like not increasing the density and work and doing everything else instead. Like, so something like that is kind of scary because it is a big effort, and I mean already the community is kind of burnt from like the previous PvP stuff that did end up
I
getting dropped
completely
pretty fast.
agree about GGG not revealing their hand as to how much effort they put in. Like even in the trail, like 1 day of development, like
Yeah,
that's brilliant. That makes the community try it for what it is and not bitch about how much focus they put on it.
and it could have been an absolute lie, and it would have
Yeah,
worked as long as the community isn't like aware of that. Fuck it. I mean,
Just keep lying.
Chris even clarified that it was bullshit, right? Because they say
yeah.
1 day of development, which indicates that they did it over the course of a day, which
Like they
wasn't
tested it
true.
in
They've been
the
doing it for like 3 weeks, except they
yeah.
could only every developer only had 1 day to work on it. So it's like I don't know about this, but because the community didn't approach it that way, I feel like that was a huge benefit, honestly.
That was the biggest upset of old PvP is that they focused too much on it from the player's perspective, and so they ended up scrapping it because the feedback was so negative.
Yeah. And I mean, it was instant. It wasn't even like oh, okay, maybe we'll try another thing with these works. Like maybe we'll convince the community. It was like, oh, you guys don't like it? Sorry. And then they just deleted all of it, never to be seen again. Most
Made me
people don't
so
even know
sad.
that shit is in the game.
It's like they broke my toy that they weren't even wanting. Like they didn't even want my toy and they broke it.
Descent Champions was that the one that had specific uniques right away at level 1? They
Yeah.
could take Descent Champion uniques realistically if they didn't want to spend much, design process on it, and just adjust them into PvP for Battle Royale, and that would be like, I'm pretty sure, really minor effort if they wanted to like spice it up and add something new to it. Because you can do that with the Battle Royale. You could change it every month, have it open for a couple days a week, and then at the end of the month cycle it and add in kind of new stuff. Really minimal effort. Because Battle Royale has a great foundation. I mean, you just take it from any game. You just have to tweak the small things in it to make it more fun for everyone.
I mean, specifically the Sun Champions that you mentioned, the uniques, it's kind of falls in line with what I talked about earlier, with having mechanics that are available later on in the game, but at these early levels. Because specifically for the Sun Champions, the bow would give you the projectiles return. So if you were to hit something, it would return. So now you're, for instance, like placing a frostwall behind somebody and you don't hit him with like the initial projectile, but then the projectile fucking returns and snaps them, right? And you can position yourself around small like that stuff like that if you were to do a map, there's a reason why I think is the Tora mod even there anymore? There
Yeah,
used to be a Tora
well,
mod, but like nobody even used it. Like, why the
It's
fuck
still
would
there.
you?
it
Yeah.
also takes last place in the projectile behavior
Yeah.
list. Projectiles will pierce, fork, and chain before returning, so it's really hard to use them to actually like
It has
use
no
that effect.
application realistically. It's unfortunate.
Did you know Spectral Throw returns and it pierces?
Holy shit!
Oh my god.
Just thought everyone should know that. That's all.
Wait a
Wait, that's a gem?
Mm,
Is that like special shield throw? I watched Etub play it once.
I've been playing that till almost level 95 now. It's okay.
Wait, before
No.
before
I
you say
agree with you. I agree with
just
you.
real quick, are you using Impulsas?
No,
Okay, please talk.
I am using a light poacher, so you can knock me on that. But I'm playing as a Deadeye. I've gone for about as much MF gear as I can fit in. I have Venter's Gamel Sedimas, I have Goldworms, and Quant Amulet. And I can still clear T16 trash at speed. The damage of Spectral Shield Throw, if you scale it correctly with good investment, and I have invested like 25, 30x worth of gear, but if you invest into it and scale it correctly, it does have damage, but it's a horrible fucking hitbox. I will not defend that. The skill feels like garbage to play when you're going fast, because I'm playing a Deadeye and I'm using shield charge, so Tailwind stacks me up to ridiculous movement speed. But then every third shield charge, I have to like stop and fiddle with my cursor and go, hey, where's the monster? All right, there it is. And then I aim shield throw and then I hit them. And then the whole pack explodes instantly, and that feels good. But the aiming part feels like crap because the projectile is absolutely tiny. Most recently, I've been trying to make an Unearth build work because the damage on Unearth is actually pretty crazy high on the pass-through. And the projectile from a fucking Unearth feels easier to hit than shield throw, which is stupid. I've had an easier time hitting bosses with fucking Unearth than I have with shield throw, which is designed to be a main skill, not a utility skill.
Well, you can chain it, bro. Just fucking chain it, you know?
I use chain. I'm a Deadeye. I chain on the Ascendancy tree.
Okay.
You know what'll cheer you up, Octavian? Apparently I was muted for the whole time I was telling you that shield throw is a bad skill. Feels good, man. But, yeah, that's one thing.
Okay, at best.
It's okay once you've put, like, 50x into it. There was this one dude on Reddit who I found fucking hilarious. Because I had so many people telling me, like, Tarke, you tried shield throw and it's fine. You're just bad at making builds. Mathel made a really good shield throw
Dude,
build.
the pretentious
this guy
style, I think I know the
on
one you're
Reddit
talking about.
made such a good, and it was like, how to shield throw. Everyone
that's
is
the one.
wrong. And he had like 100x worth of gear, perfect like 6-link cap chest,
Fucking
everything.
stat stick, and he kills like
No.
Minotaur in 45 seconds. or some shit.
Genuinely,
It's like,
my
what?
like shitty fire trapper had better map clear than this dude's fucking like 1 million mirror worthy build, and it's like, dude, rip. But
I mean, he
Tarke,
proved you though it wrongs, right?
if you run like
Soft
bleed
gold.
explosion impulsor, shield throw is something like no, impulsor is good, bleed explosion is good, shield throw is dog shit. It's so bad.
And that's what I was getting
Yeah.
at with Octavian, but he
I use
proved
Herald
me
of
wrong.
Ice and I use Light Poacher, so I do use some secondary clear effects.
Oh,
But I would honestly say that about 50 to 60% of the clear is shield throw. You do need the helmet enchant for the 5 additional shard projectiles, which feels shitty.
God.
Shouldn't need a helmet enchant for a skill to be okay, and not even like great. No, I won't defend that shield throw is top tier. I won't defend that shield throw is like the best skill. But I've had a good time playing it. Honestly, I decided to give it more of a chance, and it's fine.
I had
it's
the
not
same
great. It's not
attitude, and I
terrible.
got bullied by my chat so fucking hard you wouldn't believe. And my chat's brutal.
Yeah,
lay in.
I mean,
I've been through that fire and flames, but you know,
uh,
I come out the other side. I'm okay.
I mean, how would you guys fix it though?
Bigger
I
Damage.
haven't
hitbox.
played it.
Bigger hitbox.
It ticks the
Um,
right boxes for damage. It just doesn't do it. I don't get it.
What if
With-
LMP
with-
worked with it?
It would be-
It might be too good.
This, yeah, I agree. It would be broken if you could support it with LMP and GMP. I know right now Twitch chat's probably going crazy and lambasting me for this, but seriously, shield throw would be like really too good if you could throw multiple shields, because the secondary explosion, especially with the helm enchant, has crazy good coverage. It's just getting that secondary explosion to happen is so frustrating sometimes. So I think if you just even like doubled the size of the hitbox on the shield throw itself, it would feel a lot better to play.
Like, one of my main issues with it, and I'll agree with Octavian 100%, it's like, they made Tornado Shot and said, shit, we better not make another Tornado Shot. Let's not make it good. So, it's like half of a Tornado Shot, but it's also a really weird skill in the fact that you get it early on, so it's a leveling skill, but the way that shields scale in this game doesn't make sense, because it's like, you get your first shield, it has like 20 armor, then it goes up, and then armor values go down for like the next 3 tiers of shields. Then it goes up 1, then it goes down, then it goes down. So if you try and level with shield throw, it's like you get your best shield at level 20, then like no upgrades till 42, then no upgrades till 60. So it's this really awkward skill which like sometimes feels good, then feels terrible for like 15 levels, then feels okay again. And it kind of goes back a little bit to our very well-adjusted, agreeable conversation last time, Raiz, where it's like, oh, what's that? This was the first skill you got when leveling. You quit playing Path of Exile when you realized your build is dog shit. If it was a skill that you could only get at level 70, and when you picked it off the vendor, they gave you like a 2.5k armor shield with it, you'd say it's okay.
Oh yeah, 2.5k is a bit high.
Maybe just make it like Arc. Then you'd still have the same playstyle, right? But like, just make it like an attack-based Arc with the
How do you-
explosion on the last chain or something.
So like auto target like Arc.
Yeah, like it would just jump between mobs and then it would explode on the final thing.
Well, the problem isn't shield throw after it hits the mob. After shield throw hits an enemy in a pack, the pack is gone. You know, if you've scaled the build correctly, it does kill the pack. The problem is hitting the pack or hitting like, you know, a small group of like 3 mobs or a single rare monster. You know, especially if you're trying to go quickly or the monster's moving quickly, the projectile
America,
is
then.
tiny.
Make it like Spark, full Captain America. Just make it.
I like the way the skill looks.
And then it
It
comes
looks
back to
like
you.
Smite from D2, like whacking them with a shield up close. I love how the skill actually looks. I'd like to play it someday.
It's a really that was well done. I liked that. But it's a really weird thing where it's kind of GGG's been so hit or miss with their recent skills. That's why when they first announced the skill rework, I was really scared because it's like shield throw is pretty terrible, then storm burst is pretty terrible, charge dash is pretty terrible. The only like good skills they've like the support gems have been really good, but the only like good skill they've made is like volatile dead and cremation. But cremation is so unbelievably niche, and volatile dead renders detonate dead rework basically meaningless. So they've kind of been like, it's been really weird because it's also like it's the typical kind of like where's the testing meme. Because the second someone played with Charge Dash, it should have been really obvious what the problem with Charge Dash was. And the second when anyone played with Shield Throw, it'd be like, yeah, this doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty evident because most shield throw when it hits the pack, when you get the damage out, you are going pretty quickly. You know, it's not a slow skill. It seems like it's designed with clear speed in mind. It's definitely not a single target skill, at least not by the design. But it inherently feels bad to clear fast with because then it's harder to use the faster you go. You know, you have to whip your cursor around to that single rare monster that survived your initial toss.
Like, have you ever played like Poison Arrow with not so good AoE, but you move fast as fuck? You gotta click every single mob. It's like pizza, but you're tapping it with 2 stacks.
Yeah.
It's so much clicking that like, you either miss or your hand falls off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I leveled with it the first time round, even though the character felt really weak, I was saying to the stream, it's like, I really like the skill mechanically because I have to try really hard to hit things, but it doesn't feel rewarding. It's like you have to try so much harder, and then there's no payoff. And then when it whiffs, it just feels terrible. And like even when you see like any of these like videos of people playing Shield Throw, there's always that one pack where the guy misses like 3 times.
Yeah.
So then he's had to stop his entire map clear. Like, chain missed, like, 3 times. He then finally hits it, and then he's lost, like, all of his flasks or whatever. Then he moves on to the next pack.
It's
So-
like that one chromatic orb that you're trying to pick up and you misclick it 5 times.
Yes,
and
it's
eventually
exactly
like,
that.
fuck it.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
This would only be like a fix on indoor maps, but you know, maybe that just makes it more niche. They could have it have natively like 3 chains if it hasn't hit an enemy. So it hits a wall and it'll bounce. And it hits a wall and it'll bounce. And it'll just keep bouncing around. If it hits an enemy, it no longer does that behavior. But it chains a bunch if it hasn't hit an enemy. And then in a map like Toxic Sewers, Shield Throw feels fucking awesome. Because you can just spam shield charge through and aim at the walls. You don't even have to aim towards enemies. You can also just say get good, aim well. But why doesn't Tornado Shot have to get good?
I mean, with Tornado Shot, it's like, if you get good, you one-shot the pack. And if you don't get good, you one-shot the pack. So, you know, there's...
Well, that was the thing
yeah.
about Tornado Show when it got released, right? When people weren't really playing it outside of single target, it was like, well, this shit is fucking so much aiming because I can never do enough damage unless I precision click right behind the mob and then it actually hits it.
That was before Helmet Chance too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was a long time ago. But like when it got released, yeah, I guess it suffered.
People
kind of
lost
the
their
same
minds. They're like, this is so much better than every bow skill in the game. And it kind of wasn't.
issue.
It was good.
Yeah.
Shield Throw is the best shield skill in the game.
Shield Charge says hi.
That's a weapon skill. Uses your weapon for damage. Uses your weapon for damage.
I mean,
It says
Oh.
shield in the name, but it's lying to you.
Out of interest, just like as a really brief side point, how meaningless did you guys find that skill post that GGG did the other day? Like, most used skills in Bestiary. And it's like,
Shield charge.
Shield charge.
Yeah.
Herald. Oh, cool. I now know what a utility skill is. Can't wait till next league. PugChamp.
I never look at these things, though. It's like flame dash, decoy totem. It's like, okay, I get it. Was there actually anything useful in there?
Hell no.
I think I'm aware that people use movement skills.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Some people use Vaal skills as well. It's pretty fancy. So going from that, let's kind of go into this whole like alpha thing, and then from that we can talk about
The fun
the
stuff.
league stuff. Yeah. So as we kind of touched on it a little bit, like we've had a bit of a weird running history where like stuff gets released, it feels like it hasn't really been played much. Chris has confirmed they're going to be running an alpha for 3.3. Does this actually make us feel more optimistic? Do we go, yes, alpha, good, or do we think it's going to be much of the same?
They run an alpha for everything. I'm sorry to say this, but the alpha, I mean, it doesn't always have everything, and for the most of the time, it doesn't have everything.
I got friends in alpha. They don't get shit most of the time. Like all the actual cool shit that needs testing, they don't get to use it.
Yeah. Many people also complain that they just don't listen to feedback when it comes to the alpha. So it really depends on how that's going to be looking like. And I mean, even then, it's gonna be the same thing. Like when Ziz was making, he like got access to alpha, and then like day one he released like 5 videos or something, or like back-to-back videos because he just recorded them on the alpha. It's like, you know. That's cool and all, but now this guy has such a massive advantage over everybody else that I feel like
Yeah, that's
that
not nice.
sort of thing makes people pretty salty.
It's
Even
favoritism.
though
That was really lame. And also, since some people might like understand what happened, so the last major alpha they did, not all content creators have access. Some do, some don't. Some have access, don't use it, whatever. But they gave explicit like NDA approval for, I think it was Ziz, Ziggy, Mathel, and Lifting, I think, were the only people with it. And it was like, you can record content on the alpha and release it when you want. Which basically meant the second, like, 3.0 NDA was lifted, you had 4 people releasing the exact same 10 YouTube videos. Like, exact same. And I was like, wow, that's not really helpful for anyone and just makes everyone who doesn't have it feel kind of shitty.
exactly,
You know?
and specifically also when everybody was like, let's go for the first hardcore shaper kill, Carve's already done it on the alpha. That's a joke. He did it actually. That would have been fucked up. But actually, people believed that. That was a nice meme because he got a lot of shit, and I felt bad.
And Tarke deletes the wiki.
Yeah.
Tarke is the way.
That's why I'm not allowed alpha, because I would just delete it. I would delete the alpha
Yeah.
and then hoard all the knowledge to myself. But yeah,
It's
so
not, to me, it's not particularly invigorating to hear that. I don't think it's like.
It's just
The
poor
thing
practice.
is, they should just, yeah, it's like they really just need to fucking invest into like a proper team of people who can test this stuff. Because people always say like, well, fucking GGG doesn't test this stuff, and they test it. It's just like, imagine what sort of amount of people they really need to go through this stuff, and especially since being somebody who has participated in the alpha, it's basically SSF. Like, try and test things in the game by just being SSF. It is literally impossible to get anything.
They don't give you the tools to test.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have any tools to test. You can play the game, absolutely, but I mean, unless you invest multiple days, if you were to treat it like a proper... If you were to treat it like a job, you're not going to get much done, no matter how good your intentions are. So really, they need a much larger group of people that just have to be paid. I don't know, on call. Just make him every 2 months. You guys gotta play the game for a month. You know, fill up like 100 hours, and you get this set amount of money. And yeah, I don't know. They have to do something like that, because otherwise, it's going to remain the same notorious problem as the game has had since the dawn of time. I mean, that's what leagues were in the start. We were
The beta testers.
Yeah, we were the beta testers And if the league was tested properly, then it would get added into the core game. And GGG had this anticipation, and that's why they stuck with hardcore and standard for so long, and then why they balanced around it, because yeah, leagues were beta tests. That's it. And now obviously their mentality is different, and leagues, temporary leagues, are the game, and therefore you need another outlet for something like that, and they just don't have it, and they haven't come up with it for a really long time now. It's been like 4 years since this has been in this state.
One thing I'd be interested, and obviously some of you have alpha and don't have alpha. Personally, I feel like getting streamers, we shouldn't be anywhere near alpha, because it's like, it's one of those really awkward things where it's like, so let's say that in theory they give alpha access to all the streamers. The whole point of an alpha is like NDA, very early testing, get early feedback. As Raiz said himself, it's basically SSF. So if you want to kind of get stuff done, you have to commit. Raiz isn't going to take a week off streaming to test this thing and then give his feedback and nothing happens, right? So there isn't really any incentive for it. What I think would be a lot better is maybe the idea of bringing on like certain races or players. It doesn't have to be streamers, but just kind of like doing like very light consultancy, not like paid, but kind of like, hey, we're thinking of making this league. What do you think? And that's some of those things where like it doesn't really need to be testing, because I think there's a lot of the issue isn't necessarily just raw testing, because the last few leagues, while they've had their bugs, they haven't been that buggy. It's just been like kind of flawed design. So it's kind of like when Bistro was announced, we all individually made our this is what we think Bistro might be like thing. And most of us were pretty spot on of what was bad about it. So it's kind of like, if we're not professional, we're just people who just play video games a lot. If we can, at the very beginning, be like, this might kind of be the problem, shouldn't someone at GGG be saying that before the development starts, not like 2 days before the fucking league comes out?
So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Redeye.
Sorry, I wasn't going to say much.
Oh, was it Pohx that was starting to talk? I'm sorry.
No, I was just like, I wasn't a fan
You
of
just
Beast
talk. You just talk. Go.
Okay, sure. I just don't want to step people's toes. But so what you're saying is that you think it's not so much an issue of balance of certain uniques or skills, that sort of thing, though that can certainly come to play, but rather that GGG is somewhat out of touch with what the community wants, with what a good league mechanic might be. Because that problem could be fixed by just, surveys, more community interaction. I'm not saying GGG don't do this. Not
Okay,
getting answers to questions from the people in the community. That's what you were saying, right? Like having people provide input. Is
yes
that
and
not...
no. So it's kind of like, obviously there were bugs. There were some very obvious bugs, like the whole thing with like Abyss and Liches not spawning correctly. Like, you do need to hire more testers, and I think GG should focus on like hiring more professional testers. They test the shit. But like, for example, I think the NecroNet survey was one of the worst things they ever did. What they should have done if they really wanted to ask the community was kind of like, ask a couple of like people, like they did this before with like Steel, like, hey Steel, what do you think about X? Ask a few people like that, kind of get their feedback on it.
I mean, not in that sort of environment.
Not just Steel, but like it's one of those things of
sake.
Okay, so let's just look at the last few leagues. So, Harby League. What's the concept of Harby League? A guy comes into your map, spawns mobs, you pick up loot. The first reaction to that is, well, the most important thing is that the mobs spawn quickly enough so it doesn't feel frustrating, and the rewards feel good enough that it doesn't feel annoying. What happens? Harby launches, the mobs spawn way too slowly, you then pick up change. They then sped it up like 3 times, it then felt okay, picking up change feels kind of bad. Abyss gets launched. Well, how does Abyss work? There's cracks in the ground, stuff spawns, there's a chest at the end, maybe you get an abyssal depths, maybe you get a boss. The first thing is like, well, will we have to backtrack? If so, that feels bad. The abyssal depths RNG, that could feel bad. Boss RNG, that could feel bad. And then Bestiary. Problems with Bestiary. The fucking UI. Like, that isn't a case of, like, testing. No, that's just, like, whoever designed the UI didn't think about the player. There's no, like, clear, distinct visual. Like, when you see a beast, what does a Pharric presence look like? What does this look like? What does that look like? When you open the UI, how do you know which thing is which recipe? And there's so much shit which is just kind of like, if you just said to someone, I'm thinking of doing this thing, they'd be like, Maybe design it like that. So yeah, I think they should just kind of say, yo, Octavian, we're thinking of doing this thing. What would you recommend? That's that. Ask like 10 people, then go design your shit. I don't know.
But who do you ask, though?
I mean, that's
That
the
then
thing,
becomes
like,
the question.
Who really had, like, that's why I'm saying, like, you can't fucking do this with volunteers, because a volunteer will never have the long-term investment in a game. Like, you can't get streamers, because as much as somebody in the chat said, well, Zeus made it work, like, I'm sorry, they have to pay a lot of money to a streamer, a lot more than anybody else to just like, oh, I'm just not gonna stream for a week. So that's like not reasonable. But these are obviously people that are invested in like long-term Path of Exile. But most people just went, I just want to play this one league and fuck off, and they move on to the next game if the game is bad. So unless you make it somebody's job to preserve their job, therefore think about the long term, like you just can't fucking test it.
I
Like,
mean,
I
but
wish-
it's not about testing though, Raiz. It's like, so just using the streamer thing example, because we are streamers apparently. It's in our favor as people who we only play Path of Exile for Path of Exile to do as well as possible.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
We don't have to take time off of streaming to respond to rough ideas. Like, they don't need to send us patch notes, just like a rough idea. Like, personally, I made a point of making like 4 videos on my initial like things that I was worried about Bestiary, because I didn't like the trend of Harby and Abyss and all the backlash. I wanted it to launch well because I like the mechanic. I think it has potential. I sent all of that feedback to Bex. I organized the Baeclast, did all this shit because it's in my favor as someone who does perfect content. I want people to enjoy PoE. If you take someone like Carve and just like, yo, Carve, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Carve knows the fucking game. You could ask Carve, you could ask Uber, you could ask Mathel, you could ask Ziz, you could ask any of the big people who... Path of Exile's their fucking, like, bread. It is what it is. It's in their intention for the game to feel good so they can keep playing it. And if people like it, they'll still have viewers halfway through a league. Like, I don't know.
But what if that's already happening and we're not aware of it? Like the thing that happened with Steel, like to people that don't know, the balance changes around like, reaching 100 and mob density and these sort of things were asked at some fucking New Zealand meetup when everybody was drunk and they were fucking smashing beers, and then Chris was like, yo, what do you think about this? And Steel was like, fuck it. And then they applied it as balance changes. Like, I don't think that's the best environment for something like that.
Well, that's a very niche thing. And
who gets the blame for that? That's also
Yeah, that
like,
ties into
what if
what I wanna-
nothing happens and now GGG's like, well, this guy told us this, but he can't tell that to the community because then the community is like, this guy's fucking incompetent. But what if GGG didn't do the thing that they asked at, so they can't release the information of the person that actually got asked the thing, and then you need a dedicated group of people for this. Like, shit,
I
man.
totally agree. I think they absolutely 100% have to just invest into long-term testers. It's a legitimate job. Pay them for it. Over time, they'll learn their position, and then they can teach other people, as they swap in and out. But I think the key, because going to what you're saying, Tarke, is like, of course, people who stream the game for a living, everybody knows, like we know a lot of stuff about the game, just like a person who puts in 10,000 hours would. But you can't always come to those people for the direction of your game because of just bias and just community backlash and other things. So getting a professional team, which GGG claims they have and whatnot, that's regardless of it, but getting a better professional team or just more people, like more people. Yeah, like that's the key word is more, because in PoE is the combination of theory crafting is just infinite, and you gotta have more.
It has to be, and it also has to be like, it must be able to pay for itself. Like each one of these people keeping like 10 other people playing the game for like 2 weeks longer, that must be able to pay for itself. Like, I just cannot imagine a situation where they run into this problem over and over and over and over, where almost every league gets released in a state that pushes people away from the game, but just enough people stay so that it's successful. Like, this must be worth the money to just put in a little bit more, not necessarily effort, but just a little bit more manpower behind it.
What I would like to know is their transparency behind even recruiting people into alpha or knowing about who's in alpha, because a lot of the people there are there because they were at the start and they were into closed beta, part of Exile, I believe. Like they were just the first ones there. And I don't know how they bring people into alpha. Nobody seems to know. There's no transparency there. It's probably people on the forums with the fucking silver border, to be honest. But
I
As
mean, I can
far
tell you
as
how
I'm
I got into
aware-
alpha.
Oh,
There was
go on.
like one event or something where they just like gave a bunch of streamers alpha accounts, and then they were like, yeah, don't use the alpha accounts after that. And then you would go to them and you'd be like, yo, can I use my alpha account? And they're like, yeah, sure, go for it. And that's basically how we have alpha now. As like the majority of the people who actually participate in it. Other than that, it's people who have had like alpha for a long time. I mean, obviously since then because this is like a situation from like 2.5 years ago. So obviously since then, I'm sure that they've actually put in more people into alpha through different means, but this is how they used to do it in the past.
yeah,
where
like
it
they
was just kinda-
clearly either need or want people, but they're not very vocal about how they want to get people to test their game or play or give feedback. The tools to do it for the community aren't really there or laid out. We're kind of sitting here screaming in a fucking mosh pit of people like, I want this change. And how are they supposed to filter out all those screaming voices? That's basically what it is from their perspective. It's a
I mean, they
thousand people
specifically
screaming.
said that too, right? They said like, "Yo, fuck off! Don't actually send us requests for alpha. We're not gonna like respond to those sort of emails on that
Yeah.
announcement." So
I don't think they should either, but
yeah, they
they
should have.
have to like do something about this. I think they're not making it very believable that they're doing a great job. Maybe that's harsh.
I don't think that's harsh. I think if it's a pattern. I mean, at this point, it's not a one-off. This is a pattern. It has been a pattern for a very long time. That they release leagues that just aren't working up to player standards. And
Free
yeah,
game,
they
no
work
bitching.
well
What the
enough.
fuck?
Yeah, but they work well enough, right? So people continue to play. I played every league so far. Literally every single league I've played since the start, and you know I enjoy it. But there are many people that just get driven away from the game because of those problems, because of Parandis lag or fucking boring Tempest or
I am one of those people.
Invasion being broken or Abyss being too slow or Harbinger being too slow or Bestiary not explaining itself well enough. You know, I mean, shit, we're like over a month into the league, and Bestiary, in my opinion, now that I'm actually delving into it, and I actually am planning like a dedicated day of like just fucking trying to comprehend everything, it's actually really cool. But I've played for a month and a half almost, and I had no idea about like
Mhm.
90% of this stuff. Not because necessarily I wasn't interested, but because it just took such an effort to like really get into it. Not to the basic stuff, but like to really get into it. It takes such a massive effort. So
Is it
doesn't
worth it
explain
in your
itself well.
opinion to invest all that effort learning it?
Fuck yeah, Bestiary is
You think so?
crazy.
It's
Now
really
that I'm like
profitable if you get behind it.
after
Is it just money, though?
after Octavian and Grimro like talked about it, I've been looking into different things, the way people are getting money through Bestiary. I mean, even like the simplest example that I looked at the other day, crafting perfect flasks and reselling mirrored versions of them. Guy brings you a beast. That's the cost on hardcore. Guy brings you a beast, brings you 10 chaos. You do the flask thing. You get another flask. You give him a mirrored flask. You've got 10 chaos. That's it for one
Mhm.
beast fight. On softcore, it's fucking 25 chaos per beast crafted flask. That literally takes you 4 seconds to get, as long as you've got the base item. That's crazy amounts of money, and people do it constantly, right? And that's just the example of one flask. Imagine if you're doing this on multiple bases, multiple times a day. I mean, it's great cash, honestly.
And I
And
mean,
this is like
that's
one out of 100 examples of things that a lot of people, well, not that many people, but because of the negative connotation attached to bestiary, certain people, the same way flippers make a lot of money because people are generally unaware of it, the same way people who are aware of beast mechanics make a lot of money. Like even buying the beast, I had to spend like like I was buying beasts, it was like 10 chaos, 30 chaos, 20 chaos, 16 chaos for just one recipe. That's so much. Like I have like thousands of chaos in my SSF league just because I don't know what the fuck those beasts do. But like if I sit down and just pick up all of them and actually throw them on XYZ, that's a lot of cash, man.
um, but that realization that you had a month into the league that, hey, there's depth to this mechanic and this is cool, shouldn't have come a month into the league. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's this huge brick wall of information that you have to claw your way through before you can start playing
It's
the
exhausting.
game.
It's
Basically,
exhausting.
boss killing people's knowledge. Like, they don't know how to do Katava fights. You kill the boss for them. You know how to do it. You get money for it. That's essentially what's happening, right? You've got knowledge of the fight. You've got knowledge of the beasts. They're paying you because
Yeah.
they don't know fuck all, and that's what's happening.
It's
And,
worse than
like-
that though, because
Yeah.
so this is the issue, because Bestiary is overly complex and doesn't need to be, so it gets low player engagement, so you have to over buff it to be rewarding, so it actually becomes overly powerful for the people who understand it, meaning you get massive economic imbalances, and then because it's still just as convoluted now as it was at the start, people say shit league, GGG doesn't make mechanic-based leagues, they then go back to just kill stuff league, which is a topic we'll talk about later, and then you just have massive stagnation. And it's not that mechanics are bad, it's just like poorly fucking explained mechanics with no UI usability, doesn't show you anything to the player. That is bad. And then because of that, you have a really cool idea which doesn't go to fruition, and now I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't go core just because of how bad the backlash is, when all that really needs to happen is they need to make it less fucking confusing.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I have the literal opposite opinion of it not going core after like having looked into it a little bit more. I think not only did they want this mechanic to be core, like it was pretty clear with the amount of content that they wanted it to be core. I think they wanted to expand upon this. I think the reason why it's so fucking massively complex is because it's like almost like a separate system that should have been in the game from the very beginning that you could have expanded upon, that you know the names of the beast, you know which beasts do what, you know what works, and then they're adding more mechanics upon it. Because I can't think of anything else, right? Where, because if this was just in the game and this was Path of Exile from the beginning, then people are just used to this and it's like, oh, okay, I have to recognize these beast types, I have to recognize these beast names, I have to recognize where this guy is and what that does. And if they expand upon it and they create more crafting system or more combat systems or whatever, then you know it can work. But if it's just like this fucking thrown in, then yeah, it obviously it doesn't work. Even if there's enough justification from like a currency or like fun even point of view to have it there.
From
It
a
just might not go.
gameplay perspective, like when I first played the league, one thing that I noticed is when I throw a trap and you capture the beast, there's no like immediate reward. You get the yellows on the ground, but those drop from a rare mob anyway. Like I wasn't quite understanding the mechanic as a player who was completely new to it. That was one thing that struck me. Like you do an abyss, you do a breach, you do a harbinger, you do anything that involves killing shit, a box or Parandus, it all drops shit. It all has like immediate feedback. Capturing these beasts, I captured like 40 of them. I've gotten nothing but yellows. And then you're supposed to just wander off and learn, or just like somehow hear about it. It's not very connected to the player about them learning what to do with the beasts.
But
Yeah,
not only that though, it's as if they've gone backwards. Because we had Nemesis. Nemesis came out. The main issue with Nemesis at launch was you couldn't look at the Nemesis mode and know what it was. So then what they did is they went back and they gave certain colors to it, certain auras, make it more like you look at it and you instantly recognize that is this. So then Bestiary comes out, they have like 100 different, like, you have this beast which then has a sub-gender, a subclass, it has to be a certain eye level to work for a certain recipe, and you can't tell any of this from glancing at the mob. So even if you understand how the crafting works, even if you understand the recipes, if you understand everything, you can't just glance at the fucking mob and know what it is. And that is like the most core, like fundamental, this is how you do game design. If you look at a fucking mob, you should go, that's that mob. I use it for
But
this.
that's the thing that you guys talk about, like actual drops from the mobs. Like random rare mobs are frequently worth multiple chaos, like 4, 5, 6, 7,
Mhm.
8, 10, 15 chaos. But you have, and you look at it and you capture the mob, or you don't even capture the mob, you kill it and it drops a bunch of yellows and you go, fucking shit loot. But for the most part, you're never ever made aware that you just lost 15 chaos right there. You could have had 15 chaos and you didn't get it because you could have been trading this thing. I know I've been doing that for a full month, and I guarantee you plenty of people are also doing something like that.
Even the feedback that they have added, where when you capture a beast, it tells you you captured this in the little chat box, which is incredibly tiny and doesn't have any, it's hard to see and you don't know what you caught. it tells you the wrong information. It tells you the most, like, as someone who's been delving into beast crafting, it tells you the least useful piece of information. I don't care if I caught a sand spitter. I care if I caught a creature with Krashik presence or a creature with Hadal dive or whatever. You know, those are the useful things. When I catch the beast, it's not giving me any sort of valuable feedback even then. Like, what the most valuable beast right now that you can hunt, one of them, I talked about this in the last episode, is a Krashik presence octopus above item level 80. And when you catch it, it'll tell you caught an octopus. Or it'll tell you caught a swarthy mollusk. That's one of the base types. There's nothing useful about that.
No.
If it told you you caught a Krashik presence mob, that might be a little more useful to someone who knows a bit about the system. And even then, it's not very good because you have to know a bit about the system.
Yeah, again, exactly like comparing this. Like yesterday, I was, what was I doing? I was imprinting an item, and I didn't have the actual mobs for it, right? Because I've been playing Trade League for a little bit, and I didn't move my SSF over, so I didn't have any of the mobs. But then after I've bought the things, I'm like, wow. After buying everything, the imprint was like 50, 60 chaos altogether to get all the beasts. That's like a lot of money. And then I was like, I wonder if I've got any of this stuff on SSF. And then I went on SSF and I had like 4 or 5 of them. And I'm just like, dude, I've just been sitting on like, 300 chaos, not even knowing about this.
How long does it take you to see the prices of those things? Because I've got a bunch of shit and I've never looked.
It's a nightmare.
There's not that many.
I can't discover.
I mean, there's like a spreadsheet, like Grimiro has like a really nice spreadsheet.
Right.
It's not that precise for hardcore, but for the most part, yeah, it works. I only looked up a couple of things because it's just such a fuck ton.
PoE Ninja also has a listing of a bunch of the values of the beasts, but they change really quickly because it's a really small market because not too many people are selling to it still, even this late in the league because of dwindling player base and lack of engagement. So, one day a beast can be worth 90C and the next day it's worth 110 and then back to 90, then up and down and up and down. It changes, by the hour sometimes. Yeah. So that also makes it a little bit harder to sell your beasts and know what they're worth.
This is why I don't jump into it. I was going to say, this is why I don't really touch beast crafting, because I can't be bothered to go on a third-party website. Not saying it has anything to really do with third-party, but just I'll tab out, go here, check this up, search. Oh, this guy has a better guide. All right, check here, go here.
I'm learning, dude.
Dude, that one imprint to figure out like how to do the search, what beasts, how to even search for the beast, the fucking recipe and everything, because you've obviously got to look that up because you don't know, right? If you don't have the imprint recipe because you haven't captured the beast, but you want the imprint and you want to buy the beast, you have to go to a third-party website to see what's actually available. The same way, if you want a recipe, like, I don't know, for masters, right? Like, why can't you just have for a master, and the same thing for recipes for beast crafting? Just a list of things, and if your master isn't high enough, or if you haven't captured the beast for the recipe, have it grayed out. Oh, you're gonna need this thing. Once you capture it, you're gonna be able to do this thing. And even this, I mean, it took me like fucking 40 minutes to get all of these things figured out with the octopuses and Krashik and item level 70 and random rare deep. And some of the descriptions are cryptic too on the wiki because it says like rare deep mob of the deep, and in the game they're like described differently, but then on the wiki they're just dead deep, so you don't, is it dweller of the deep, is it like some sort of crab thing, like
it's fucking word soup.
It's just really confusing, man.
Now imagine if it was just a case of match the colors and match the shapes. It would still be confusing as fuck, but you'd be like, oh, green equals this craft, I need the bright fucking green mob. And that way you know that it's the bright fucking green mob in the instance. Pohx summarizes it perfectly.
No? Yeah, like, with essences it works. It's like, oh, you corrupted the purple shit. That's it.
It's quite similar to essence, actually, come to think of it. Like, you get the mob, it has a bunch of essences on it. Like, it's almost like collecting essences.
Yeah, I think the goal was to sort of revisit the concept of essence and expand it and make it, more far-reaching in terms of what systems in the game it can hit. Because, essences, you can't make Harbinger orbs. Essences, you can't split an item or imprint a magic item or do all this crazy shit. And that's really cool. And I want to see more crazy recipes.
Essence did the same thing for me, though, initially, where I looked at an Essence, like, when they released them, and I was just like, what the fuck? And then you have to read one by one by one by one for every single item, and then you've got, like, 30 of them. And it's like, oh, okay.
It's almost as if...
but it's right there.
Yeah. it's almost like they went backwards, because it's like Bistro was clearly like Prophecy, Essence, Harby 2.0. Everyone's favorite thing about Harby was the orbs. People love the orb. They were like, this is amazing. So like, okay, so we don't really want Harby, we want the orbs. How can we keep the orbs? People are like, oh, I like essence crafting, but I don't like trading for essences. Trading for essences feels terrible. It's a bit confusing. There's not much like direct like feedback there. And Prophecy, it feels like I don't really engage with Prophecy. It's just a UI. So like, okay, so how can we take the best thing of all of these? Well, what we'll do is we'll take the slow and clunky nature of Harby. We'll take the poor visibility of this, and we'll take the shitty UI of Prophecy, and we'll spin it up in our fucking cauldron. We'll disable trading for the first week, so people are even less likely to engage with the fucking thing. And then we'll spew it out, and it's actually a really fucking good system. It's such a good system if someone cleaned it up, cut out half of the fat. And it's probably not going to go core. It's going to be wasted. It's going to go down as like a wasted league. And it's actually such a fucking good idea. And the execution was just kind of wasted. But anyway.
It's going to go core. I guarantee.
I hope it is, but
think
I don't think it will.
Sure.
I think so as well.
Imagine working for a company on this for several months. All your work is into this project, and they just fucking scrap it.
If they kept
I'd be
Labyrinth,
fucking pissed.
A lot of things, right? Sorry, Pohx, what were you saying?
I was just saying, if Labyrinth is in the game, it's gonna be pretty hard to like. I'm sorry, but like, Beaster is definitely going in there. You'll see some yellow beasts in your maps in the future.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't really like. Imagine that being an argument from GGG. It's like, well, we're gonna make it core, and everybody's like, "What? Fucking, how dare you?" And they're just like, "Well, you did say it felt like standard league, so I guess you don't. If you don't notice it, then there's no downside of it being core, right? See you later."
Just ignore it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Guys, look, we'll make a deal with you. Either we make Bestiary core, or you have to complete lab before finishing every act. Fine, give me Bestiary. Give me Bestiary.
Trials in every character, please.
Oh, fuck that.
Break up that gameplay. Break it up.
Hell
Okay.
yeah, we're leveling too fast, boys.
Right, so, going from that into Killing Stuff League, how did people feel when they announced, do you like killing stuff? Next league is Killing Stuff League.
It felt a little pandering, honestly. I mean, I'm not against another league like that, but just the way it was phrased in the announcement, it's like, oh god, they didn't like Bestiary. Quick,
Don't
tell them
fuck
it's
up
Breach
this time,
2.0.
Smile.
Oh god, Bestiary didn't go well.
Yeah, I feel like there's a big disappointment coming up because it's like it's they must be scared of Breach at this point, right? Where they're like, we made this shit too good. People
Yeah.
are always like, give us Breach again, and so now they just can't anymore, right? Or can they?
We're all out of mobs,
They
dude.
have to put it on Sonite.
This actually goes really well into the flashback discussion, if we can kind of like go back to it. Because it's like, yeah, we got Breach. Breach was too rewarding in terms of XP, in terms of loot. People got used to that. We went from Breach into Legacy, into Harby, into Abyss. That's over a year of incredibly sped up progression. Bestiary comes out. People who've played Path of Exile for a year, who started in Breach, they're like, I've played this game for a year. I know how this game works. Bestiary comes out and like, where the fuck are my monsters? Where the fuck is my loot? This isn't Path of Exile. So now you have to constantly try and replicate Breach, but nothing will ever feel as good unless it's more rewarding than Breach. And if you ever make anything more rewarding than Breach, you just move the goalpost, and now everything, it doesn't feel as good as Breach 2.0. And that's why it's really dangerous, in my opinion, to just keep trying to make Breach. That you need to be like, try different things. And then Flashback comes out, and if you... I enjoy Flashback. I love Flashback. But it's like, if GGG gets into the cycle of we'll always put Flashback just before a new league starts, then that means that everyone's going to play like the most packed, most rewarding type of Path of Exile, the most like polished Path of Exile, because it's old mechanics which now work, right before a new league. And what do new leagues usually do? Not work, so then they just feel bad in comparison. Abyss felt a lot worse because of how good Mayhem was. 100%. If you played Mayhem, then you played Abyss, and Mayhem was better.
Yeah, but it's such a tiny portion of the player that actually is still playing at that point now.
I didn't feel Mayhem and I hated Abyss, but that's just me. So just the Abyss cracks mainly. So
Mm,
I think I did, and I died to Labyrinth. I forgot. It was a long time ago. We don't talk about that.
yeah, I mean, it's really a scary perspective. Just to clarify, because next thing is an expansion, right?
No, it was meant to be an expansion. That's something that not enough people have been talking about. As far as I'm aware, 3.3 was meant to be an expansion. Then in the post that released, they said it's not an expansion. It's going to be expansion light with reworking skills. Kind of like how this was like, oh, we've revamped Ascendancy, so it's loads of content, but not an expansion. So they actually, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like they have changed their development cycle, which I'm actually very positive about, because it's for a long time GG's problem is they try too hard, and then they just have these unreasonable like goals for themselves. So if they're slowing down that cycle, like they're delaying expansion, that's a fucking good thing, because it just gives them more time. They need time.
Okay, so just to clarify, did they say that the killing mobs and everything? Did they say that that's part of the league? Or
Yeah,
is
that's
that
the
part
league.
of the
Yeah.
just
3.3
release?
is the league.
Yeah, but the whole killing thing, that's the league, or is that part
That's
of
just the league.
expansion
Just the
line?
league. The expansion light is like the skill reworks that we're getting.
Okay.
So
cool.
the reworks is like the light mini expansion, and then the league is killing stuff league.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, then that's terrifying. Because yeah, it might just be breach. I mean, or it might be so good that you just add it into the game and then you don't even mind, right? Because breach is still like, I think that's GGG's greatest defense. That breach is still in the game. I mean, no matter how you look at it, it's still there. And I mean, it was there on like a greater level than ever, really. Well, outside of, I guess, races where you would have like 10 breaches, which nobody would do, by the way, because it was inefficient. I mean, some people did it. If you wanted to sustain maps and whatnot, it was like the craziest thing. But like even last league, right? Because you could run like 3 breaches, or was it 4, per map. So
3, sometimes 4, if you got a randomly
Yeah.
spawning one.
yeah, so that's like more breach than ever. So maybe it was just in breach overload. Because I don't remember all this super positive feedback when breach was a thing. Like I remember people liking breach, but not like, oh fuck breach. Yeah.
I
think it
remember
got
the whole
better
fuck
doing-
Ash.
Fuck.
Yes.
Fuck Ash faults.
Like,
Yeah.
people discovered
Unreleased
the potential of it.
Ugh.
What did
Sorry.
you say, Redeye?
As the Breach League went on, people discovered the potential of it. Like, people were finding out, oh, Bisco's is fucking nutty with it. And people just finding a bunch of shit. Like, I remember Waggle was playing like an EAMF character and just making fucking thousands of chaos because he was just killing breaches.
Hmm.
And he ended up finding a lot of good shit. Like, people didn't realize how crazy they were until the league actually went on. And the map shit, they nerfed quite early. Only rares would drop them, but it's still nice.
Oh, I definitely breach. People enjoyed breach. I just don't remember everybody being that crazy about it. And I mean, the thing is too, like breach in a way became like a substitute for how good like old density maps felt / how OP sextants were. So this is like your only outlet for like real density at
It's
this
true.
point. So yeah, maybe that like fills that void for people too. That's why they try to get it back like extra hard.
And that was in full Sexton block mode, triple white bullshit on Strand.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things going on there. So, the reason why a lot of people weren't big fans of Breach was Breach launch with terrible FPS issues. You had the toll monsters were really overtuned, Esh balls, etc. So, like, a lot of people struggled just to play the content. And then you always need to remember there's this weird, like, trickle-down effect. Like, just because Waggle's playing something, and Waggle's a god, by the way, I love that dude. Everyone else isn't playing that till, like, 3-4 months later. So, like, Breach launches, and it's laggy as fuck. Like, people weren't like, the general community weren't complaining about Bisco's being OP until it had already been nerfed, like, twice. So, this was also in full Sextant meta. So we had Breach, then we had Legacy. Some people were fully Sextant blocking during Legacy, but not everyone was. It wasn't really till, like, Harby that it was like, oh, this is how Sextants work, and people were really fucking abusing it. So we have this, like, weird trickle-down effect, and by the time the average person learns how powerful something is, that's also generally when it's been polished, because it's like, that's how leagues work. Like, leagues, launch, they're shit for the first month, they're good in the last bit. So by the time people realized how good it had already been improved by that point, and we did go from Breach into Legacy into Harby, which was so much ramped progression. Like, we've never had that much ramped progression, because Legacy was just like, you get everything because Legacy League, and Harby was, you just have infinite fucking maps, because it was Harby. So yeah.
I agree.
Is
So
there maybe
this all stacked up? Yeah.
is there maybe a worry then that a mechanic similar to Breach or similar to Ambush, which I think they compared to in the forum thread where they announced it, could be solved too quickly? Then, you know, if it's basically the same thing as Breach, obviously it's not going to be literally exactly the same, but people might find the powerful thing really fast, and the league might, even if it's fun for the first month, fall off faster as a result of that. You know?
Does what you're saying include like the the leak stone mechanic being abused and like steps got banned for it and shit? Does it encompass glitches like that are ridiculously profitable?
So like when I say a mechanic is solved, finding those glitches and abusing them. No, I wasn't really intending it to mean that, but I guess you could look at it that way as well. Yeah, I was thinking more on along the lines that people would play out the league mechanic too quickly if it's too similar to previous ones.
Oh, right.
You know, Bestiary obviously had its flaws, but if it were a better presented mechanic, it may have been one of the more enduring leagues for Path of Exile, because it's such a new thing and because it's something that requires, you know, or that can give the player more depth to plumb. Whereas if it's just another sort of semi-breach, semi-abyss, semi-harbinger league, it's like, yeah, they drop green candy instead of blue candy, but it's still me in a circle killing monsters. And that gets old eventually.
I mean, that's what Abyss is, and it didn't go through. I mean, Abyss isn't even that much less mobs than Breach is, right? Is it even less? I think Abyss is like around
Definitely.
300 mobs.
I think it fares better on indoor layouts, certain maps.
Abyss is
But
like
it's
more
like
consistent.
it's like the same principle, right? Like, you can't approach the middle. It expands out, but like in a smaller circle, so it fixes the issue that Breach had, where eventually it gets big enough so that you don't see any mobs anymore, but it's still getting bigger, so you're
Like
kind of
Abyss
sticking around.
functions in Toxic Sewer, but Breach doesn't. Breach can have
Yeah,
like
yeah.
4 mobs.
Yeah, there you go.
Redeye
So
hit it exactly.
It like addresses that issue, but like at its core, it's basically the same thing. And you see a similar amount of mobs. I mean, if you run Rampage, I think it's like per actual Abyss, it's like 300 something mobs usually. The problem is that sometimes it's like 2 pits and sometimes it's like 6, right?
To be fair, the spitters just spit out random fucking trash that don't drop anything, and that adds to the rampage.
Yeah. Okay, I can. Well, yeah, I can see that.
There's also the thing with Abyss, because Abyss is so much more consistent than Breach, you can't really abuse it. Like, the thing with Breach was, like, getting the right layout to get that juicy Breach with the crazy sextants. Like, I think that was when you were first, like, doing the Blight thing, Pohx, and you were like, I have no movement speed, but it's fine, because I'm in Shape Shore, fully sextant, and my breaches are fucking huge. And I used to pop everything. You know?
That's why I liked kind of Harbinger, too, is kind of like the balance between movement speed, clear speed, and, like, density, clear speed. Because you want to be able to reward players for having a good build, even if it can't run as fast as a Queen of the Forest Wander, right? Because players don't want to be forced into that thing every single time. Sometimes they want clear speed, just not through movement, just through density.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love Beyond. It does exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Until it blows up a red or yellow mob, a beast mob.
Yeah.
And then you don't like it.
Um,
Unless you
yeah.
capture them with your 200 StarCraft APM.
One thing I would like to ask, just out of interest, because it's like I always find it kind of weird that it's like the main reason why people hate D3 is of how quickly you progress in D3, but it seems like the things which people praise the most in PoE are the mechanics which give you super rapid progression. Like, in your guys' opinion, what's like the cutoff point? Like, what is too much progression? Could we ever reach that point in PoE? Because PoE's got more build diversity.
Could you draw the picture of D3 for me? I never bought it. It's a $60 game.
I mean, it's
I don't
D3
have a
had
pen.
even less assets in that way, right? The D3 not only does it feels like like it's reused assets from like beginning to end, while PoE still has that like progression where you feel like you're actually doing something in the game. And I would say that was the biggest flaw at D3. Once you get into the itemization and all that sort of stuff, at that point you're doing the exact same thing you were doing before, because they made like the initial game so
Like, obviously, I'm not talking
negligible.
about like the initial disappointment of D3, but like I know a lot of people who are like, yeah, I still enjoy D3. I wait for a new season to come out. I play for 2 days. I'm done. My character's fully geared. I quit. That's kind of more what I'm talking about. That aspect of it.
Right.
Yeah, but it's like in PoE, even if you're fully geared and you've got all the shit and you're just like getting 5 more int on your helmet or something for a Hoa build, that still feels better than what it felt like in D3. That's the problem. Because in D3, those little progressions through like the Paragon, because it's the exact same system, right? You never really like, once you've got a good enough item, unless you're jumping from like a 10C item to like a 10X item, you're not gonna have that big of a progression in terms of gear. Typically it's like a small adjustment that you're making to your character. That's what you have in D3, that little, you know, squirt of dopamine just right there for that little bit, but it happens over and over and over to the point where it just gets tedious. But at its core, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing.
Well,
It's just that it's more interesting in PoE, because even though you've got all the gear, you still like to further engage with the content to the point where, yeah, getting to like level 90 takes you about 24 hours until you move to another character, depending on, you know, how you play the game, right? Some people it takes longer, some people it takes shorter, whatever. So you still continue to play the game past just the gearing stages. That's a success, I think.
and I would also argue that Path of Exile, because it has a larger player base, can dilute drop rates to the point where you have items that can be, you know, exotic and unique without, not literally unique items, but, you know, Shaper and Elder Gear is a really good example of that. That's something that would really never work too well in Diablo, because you have to grind forever to get the exact right Shaper or Elder piece of gear with like all the 6 affixes that you want. But in Path, somebody else doing some grinding in some other map can have it drop and sell it to you. So you can aim to include those things in your build, to include the really, really weird off the wall stuff, because there's the larger player base to draw from, and that adds another whole layer of depth and another whole 100 hours or so of playtime in order to actually reach the top of your progression. You know, like we were talking about last episode with like the triple Watcher's Eye with all the right mods. That's the sort of thing you can theoretically aim to have in your build in Path, and can be that last little bit of frosting on your cake as far as your build is concerned.
Just to address Overdrive in the chat, because he said D3 has 30 million copies, it has a gigantic player base. It has a large player base, but it's not a player base visible to the individual.
Yeah.
As far as you're concerned, there's 4 people playing this game, because that's how many you've got in your party at most.
That's
There's
what I was
nobody
referring to.
else you can engage with, right? So just to be clear, I guess, about that.
Yeah,
Sorry for the random D3 tangent that I know chat's really enjoying. Sorry, I'll let you finish, Octavian.
you
What were we
can't
talking about
access
anyway?
you can't access the drops and the wealth and stuff that other people are generating and that they maybe don't need. You know, you can have something as almost by solo play like unobtainably rare as the perfect Shaper item, or maybe a bit less rare like a Headhunter or something along those lines in Path of Exile, because you have a large player base to all be dropping Doctor cards, and then someone can buy up a set.
That makes sense. All right, sorry about that, chat. I won't do it again. I've learnt my mistakes. I'll never mention it. Doesn't exist. Okay, so very briefly before we move on to one other quick topic, how do you guys feel about the people saying move from 3 to 4 month development schedules? Because that's a regular suggestion. People say, "Oh, this fixes everything. 4-month league cycle." Like, how do you feel about that shit?
I think if it actually fixes the initial testing, then sure. But I think that that's not the solution that GGG is really looking for.
I feel like it depends what they do with their time. If there's literally 4 months of fucking dead air and then a good league comes out, I don't think I'm that happy. Because it's dead fucking air for 4 months. Well, realistically, 3 to 2 maybe. Because you're going to get bored of the league, and then you're like waiting for a flashback. Flashback doesn't come. Maybe a race event. Oh, no. No, those don't exist.
I mean,
and then,
yeah, sorry.
That's basically my point.
Yeah, it's just that GGG, they're Okay, so it's not like they don't have time to test things and to run things and to figure things out. It's just that they're always like more, 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 more. And that's like whenever they release anything, it's always a fuck ton. It's like if you compare like a minor league, even this, like reworking Ascendancy, even Bestiary alone as a league is like an insane amount of content. That's something any other game would take like at least 2 years to release really, and most likely in the form of like a paid expansion. But in the case of GGG, it's like when they had all the time really to polish things and figure things out and balance things around, instead they were like, wait a minute, we have 5 extra minutes. What if instead of 1 act, we release 10? And it's like, ugh. So like, even if you give them 4 months, they're gonna be like, wait, we have 1 more month to now, instead of adding 6 acts, we can add 12? Let's do it. And, like, that's kind of their mentality. I don't think like the time, unless they change their core mentality of like how much they really, unless they put a finger on specifically how much shit they want to release, no matter how much time they have, they're always gonna want more. Yeah. So I don't think that's a matter of like 3, 4, 5, 6 month leagues. It's a matter of like their attitude at the core.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. Self-control has always been like the main thing. It's like whoever's in charge of designing the new stuff is like an over-imaginative kid with a box of Legos, you know? It's not like, oh, I've made a rocket ship. It's I've made this laser beam whip mace hammer twat mungo thingy magiggy. But yeah.
Because you can only really have two attitudes, right? Either like reworking the thing, and like you can either be the kid that just like builds a ship, and now that he knows that after he's built a ship, he instead can either scrap the ship and build another ship that's better, and that could be the attitude of GGG, or they can continue the attitude that they have right now when they build one ship and they have to return it, but they have 10 more minutes. They're like, let me build another ship. 2 ships must be better than 1. And then they give it, and the guy's like, yo, these are 2 really shitty ships. And he's like, fuck, I should have instead, scrapped it. Like, that's just their mentality, I think.
What if... So, I tried something, and we'll see if next league it works. So, I actually sent Chris a calming candle. It was like a calming candle. And I think if everyone sends Chris a candle to just chill him out a bit.
Wait, how did you do that?
I worked out where the head office was. I sent the address to Beck saying, is this still the head office? I signed up for a supermarket in New Zealand, and I basically did like a supermarket delivery, like drop off. I sent him.
What the fuck, Tarke?
It was a meme joke. You know when it's like, oh, I'll do something. I just went too far with it. So I sent him like a vanilla candle, some Kit Kats, some tea bags. And my favorite bit was the stress relief body wash. That was my favorite bit. And I actually got a message.
Here, Chris, clean yourself.
I actually got a
scented
message
candle,
from him.
motherfucker. There you go.
Dude, that's like so fucked up. That's like the thing where you're like working or something, and oh god, that's like my ex-girlfriend's mom. She was like going to work over and over, and then one day, as a gift for like the work stuff, they gave her like the thing that waxes hair, and it turns out that she like never waxed her legs or something, and they just gifted it like a nice thing, but then like it's the most fucked up thing on the planet. That kind of how it sounds like. Tarke is just
But yeah, I did actually get a message back, and he said, a soon-to-be stress-free Chris. But the point was, if we all just like send them things just to like slow them down a bit, if like Pohx gave everyone at GGG swimming lessons, right? Then maybe what could happen is they're a bit more chilled out when it comes to designing the next thing. Instead of doing like an entire armada, they just do one really good ship. But yeah.
But then they won't actually get it done, but that's okay.
Okay, yeah, true.
Did you say swimming lessons?
Yeah, you could get them all swimming lessons.
Oh, I like how that's got that interaction. Weed swimming lessons.
What you do? TOS. This is a PG-friendly stream, boys.
I'm like 12 years old. What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Stream. Hell yeah.
Not okay. So finally, before I let people do their like closing thoughts, people wanted me to ask you guys, what do you think about the elder cheating people are doing in Trade League using other people's Atlas? Is that a problem? Should it stick around? Should it change?
I don't think it's the ideal solution. to spawning the T15 Elder, but I do want there to be a better solution than the one that's like the way they meant you to spawn it in the game, which is randomly derping about on red maps until Elder decides not to fuck around anymore and actually spawn on the map you want him on. So I'm fine with it until they implement a better solution. Please don't take it away without implementing a different solution. Please.
Dude, I had to live through that frustration vicariously through other people because I can't hunt down my own Elder because I've got a fucking loop. Like, I can't undo the loop because it's a really fucking good loop. So I'm like, I kind of want to do Elder, but I got this fucking loop. And I'm not too keen on the split that it makes because you really want the fucking loop, but you also want Elder because it's cool as shit.
That's my biggest problem. It's like, well, I'm planning to play many builds, so I technically don't want to clear all the maps, but I do want Elder. But if I want to run Elder, then I can't run shape maps anymore. But I want to level map my character, but red maps suck. It's like, well, you gotta make a decision, unless you want to like unshape all your red maps.
I'm gonna make 2 accounts next league, and I'm not joking, unless they give me Atlas pages.
That's actually reasonable.
You see, Redeye's the only streamer who can do that because he's the only ethical MTX streamer. We
Yeah,
can't
free
do
to
that.
play game,
Yeah.
no ball MTX, easy.
Wait, you have no MTXs?
Oh, I got a full set of MTX, they're all free.
Okay.
Whenever you watch Redeye's stream, it's just some like disgusting naked giraffe running around as little bright beaks and like some random like abyss helmet, and you're like, oh my.
Easy.
I mean, technically, if you really think about it, despite us all having MTXs, Redeye probably is the person who makes GGG the most money. Because they like look at his shit and they're like, ooh, time to buy a supporter pack. Jesus Christ. I don't want to look like that. So
Donate me, let's go.
Did we even talk about Flashback and like a real thing?
We started talking about Flashback and then we went like
Tarke.
way off.
No, don't tell him.
Rip.
What?
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Oh. What?
Yeah, man.
Oh shit, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm using push to
Wheelchair's
talk.
muted.
I've got a new keyboard. I was holding down caps lock, not shift. Stream could hear me. Dude, that's like one of the most stressful things in the world when you upgrade your keyboard and all the keys are just slightly to the left or slightly to the right.
Pressing one fucking button, dude.
It's difficult, man.
Tough.
It's
No,
hard
it's a
to-
nightmare. If you've got like the extra like macro keys on the side, it's an
Even
actual
like
nightmare.
a $2 keyboard.
Yeah.
I
That's the
actually,
easiest decision.
I finally swapped off of like the side macros on this new keyboard that I have, and it feels so weird not having the side macros, like because it's shifted over like 2 keys.
I had exactly that. I went from one of the Logitechs, which had all the side macros, to a Corsair K70, I think. So it's such a way more compact keyboard. I'm always just pressing the wrong thing. So
Oh,
I
we have
went-
the same keyboard.
Oh, nice. But yeah, I would be surprised when I upload this VOD, half of the VOD is just this. Yeah,
Nice.
do you want to talk about Flashback, or are we done? What are you feeling, boys?
Fuck yeah! Flashback.
Right,
Let's go.
Flashback, go,
Flashback's
Raiz. Go, Flashback.
I don't think people know what Flashback is. Flashback is when... Wait, the Tarke stream? I don't know. I was gonna make a, Flashback is like when you bust, but she doesn't stop sucking type of joke.
Whoa, tons of service, dude! Come on, homie! PG stream!
That's
Oh, yeah.
Flashback. That's basically Flashback in a nutshell, literally. All right.
It keeps coming, dude.
If you've never played the Flashback, you definitely should. It is something to look forward to, and if you can, influence GGG to make it as long as possible, or 2, even better. Shit, that would be nice.
Don't complain when Beyond comes, Reddit. For fuck's sake. It's a good thing.
Oh, it's coming. Beyond's gonna get a lot of people.
Oh
Learn
yeah,
to enjoy it.
do you think they're going to do like the rotating thing, or are they just gonna like?
I
slap?
imagine so. I don't know any other system.
Well, because there's basically 2 systems for Flashback. To anybody that doesn't know, it's like basically all mechanics the way they were, like at the same time, or they do like sequences of 1, 2, maybe 3, sometimes mechanics that rotate week after week. And so sometimes it's just an absolute clusterfuck. Sometimes it's manageable. if it's the other version, or sometimes there's like, even if it's just 3 different mods, like, I don't know, beyond, I would guess, I don't know, beyond breach, and what's something really clusterfucky. Like, I don't know, there's certain combinations that just are like super fun.
20
to play
strong
around
boxes
with.
or whatever.
Yeah, strong boxes, yeah, sure.
Strong box
And,
supports.
Yeah, and then it's just like a real clusterfuck, which is really fun. Or if you have everything, but I don't think they've done the thing where it's like everything at once for a really long time, right?
No,
I think they've
I
been
don't
doing the
think so.
rotating.
Also, Pohx, can I just say, all the MVPs who were the strongbox supports who died to fucking up opening strongboxes is the best thing in the world. That's some of the most fun you can have, is like when your strongbox support rips. Beautiful.
Every league, you look at Reddit at like the rips, right? Like day 1 or day 2. Only in this league do you get to see just the Reddit filled with just click, strongbox, desynced, in, dead. Just the whole Reddit, just top page is just gonna be supports dying. It's gonna be awesome.
That's also I think that's my favorite thing about Mayhem as well, because you can take the bitch boys to a whole other level. Like, you have the curse bitch, you have the support bitch, then you've got the strongbox bitch. And that's the best one.
You don't want to be the strong box base, by the way.
Dude,
Just a heads up.
my friend Kane, he was doing this thing of like, he was like, I'm gonna be a freeze pulse totem dude and I'll freeze everything. It'll be great. And we used to just take the piss out of him how his build was bad. So he was like, fine, I'll just put a combs on and be a strongbox dude. He died the same day he respected his character because he fucked up his flasks.
And then like there's a lot of trusting with that too, because you're often like there's like 3 boxes next to each other and you're like you got your strong box bitch, but you want to help out. You're like that guy in WoW who, yeah, you've got a tank, but I mean you can survive for a second, so you're just gonna pull the mobs anyway because he's gonna grab him off of you anyway. And yeah, you open the box when he's standing next to it, he thinks it's not open, and then it pops you with like a ice nova. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Need another support.
I'm the worst with that though. With me, it's like, if there's a strongbox bitch, I'm not clicking on a box. That's your job. People would get so angry, they're like, Tarke, you never click on anything. I'm like, yeah, it's not my job. I'm the carry. I kill shit. You click on things.
Yo, I clicked on the box today, did the TP thing where you click the box after you click the TP so you leave, came back in, got fucking frozen when I came back in.
And then the bot in they fixed it. Okay, so anybody who doesn't know, like if you don't have wisdom scrolls or whatever weird situation you're in, you can basically use the lag when you're entering a TP to your advantage. So you click on the TP, you get the little loading thing, and then you run over to the box, you click it, and then it TPs you out because the game rolled it. Then when you come back in, there technically should be mobs, and the box should be popped. But they did something where sometimes it does exactly what Redeye said, where you come back in, you wait in your grace period for like a second or two, there's no mob, and then you start moving, and then the box freezes you, and then the mobs spawn around you, and it's like, oh shit. But that only, and you can see it like when it happens. Because I don't know in your case, Redeye, if there were actually mobs or not. Because in my case, when that happened,
I was
there were no
explaining
mobs.
to my stream what to do, I do it, and I almost get fucking killed. I'm like, yo, what happened?
That's the best.
That is genuinely the best thing when it's like inserts, you're like, dude, my build is so tanky, let me just AFK and show off how good my temp chains is, and they just get like one pop. Just like,
Dude, that's how you died to Manchuria with 20k, yes. Hello, Zeno.
That's what I was doing too. Yesterday I was like, yo guys, check out my lightning arrow mirage archer single target. I'm not even gonna attack these mobs, and it's totally gonna kill everything. I like stand in it next to the mob for like literally a second. He hits me for like 90% of my life. I'm just like, okay, never mind. Just run away.
Had a close scenario, but it was more just going over beastry nets, and I was explaining to someone why it's really annoying to have to like stop, switch, swap onto a necro net. And as I was moving my cursor, I left-clicked my Death's Oath chest piece, which gives 50 all attributes, which disabled itself and unequipped like every single piece of gear I have as a CI character in like, you know, running like T11 Underground C. The only fucking reason I lived is because I have Discipline in my Pariah, which doesn't have like any requirement for like anything. So the Discipline was there, and I couldn't even drop it because it's like, are you sure you would like to drop this chest piece that has been socketed with 6 support gems? Yes. Are you sure that you would like to drop this chest piece? No. Are you sure you would like to move this chest piece? And just like Alt F4 and you log back in with the chest piece just sitting right there. Like, oh god.
And you gotta run to the stash with the item.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta just do the one long click.
It's like you have your trousers halfway down.
Yep, the chancing headhunter strat. Go into the portal with the headhunter or with the bow.
Yeah.
Dude, that's like I love doing that shit. On that topic though, Pohx, I wonder if you get this a lot as well. People fucking think curses suck dick. It surprises me how bad people think curses are. I played a cultist this league, doing like the full like crazy enlightened temp change. People are like, why are you investing so much into curse? You know, efficiency effects. They're terrible on bosses. I'm like, what bosses you're mapping? Like, nothing moves. Like, curse is just so bad. Do you get that as well?
I mean, not really. I mean, ever since I've ran like temp and blast, like just temp blasphemy, and if you can add in enfeeble blasphemy, you don't even need to really get curse effect. Like curse effect is just extra. Just temp chains with a blasphemy at 10%, 20% quality, literally makes monsters like dumb. Like they just don't even do anything. But yeah, I definitely would say some people don't really realize how strong it is. Like I almost want to use Aspect of the Spider on every single build I play, just because it gives me a temporal chains in a huge AoE with just 35% or 25% reservation, however much it is for the aspect. Like slowing down monsters, insane.
I'm in the boat where curses on the support as a replacement for an Aurabot, or even comparing it to an Aurabot, it's not even fucking close. Like an Aurabot is just so much more in so many ways. Like the purities are fucking nuts. It's like 9 max res. And then you've
Purities
got
are breaking,
yeah, you got purities, you got damage through the rats and shit. Like mapping with an Aurabot, especially with the Vaal haste, the double haste, like there's so much going on there. And then I'll map with a cursor, like a couple maps later, just 2 of us, like swap the supports. And it's just like half the speed. I'm getting all these curses, but like we're not going faster. So I'm not a fan of the curse support unless it's the 3rd man. That's how I look at it.
If you're gonna be doing like the pre-made map setup, I would always take the purity bitch over the curse bitch, because you just stand on top of them, and you don't die, and it's like
Yeah, but like that's such an investment. You have to be an actual support, right? Versus just using curses, which is
just
I'm talking about like a cultist 8 fucking curse bullshit.
I was mostly just talking about the point of view of like kind of like what Pohx was saying, like you just run Aspect Spider, you have a blasphemy. I've been wanting to run Aspect the fucking Spider all league, but I can't get the fucker in SSF. It's pissing me off. But I had a cultist this league with all the curse effects on the tree. They randomly added like 15% curse effect to a cultist for no reason, and I was using the shield which upgrades, the ignite immune and the cold immune shield, you vend them to get the other one. I was using the ignite immune shield because CI and ignite, and I had blasphemy, enlighten, temp chains in that, so the blasphemy, the temp chains, and then all got +2 from the shield. Holy fuck, shit didn't move. Like it was so good. So good.
Yeah. Blight, Wither, temp chains, like hinder. I mean, even bosses, they come to a stop. Like they stop for that duration of blight, and then once the blight falls off, then they start moving again, and then you just throw an Arctic armor, and you're like, okay, have fun.
You know what doesn't help there? I find that crazy curse occultists. You know what that doesn't work for? It's Zeri Flame Blast. If you tank the Zeri Flame Blast, you just die. Yeah, I found that out the fun way. I was like, my character's so tanky. This is so easy. Let's just whip out a few Zeris really quick. And I did the typical noob strat of, ooh, dodge this, goes into the corner between the 2 corpse piles, and then she does, when she like starts channeling the Flame Blast. I'm sorry, why does she randomly do like the 1 second detonation shit? Like fucking, when she does the really early Flame Blast, like sometimes she does like a full channel, and sometimes she just like
actually gain any damage. It's always the same damage.
It's just the one.
She like changes what she's doing, like changes focus. She'll just instantly detonate it.
Yeah, and
that
fucked me up.
I've never seen that. Is that like a lag problem or something?
You're probably playing with multiple players.
No, it was just one person SSF. It's just I can't work out because I haven't done that much at Zeri. Like on my whole account, I've probably only got like 15 or 20 kills, but.
Temp chains on her can cause her to instantly storm call on top of you, because she'll be placing the storm call so slowly that they will catch up, detonate while she's casting them, and she'll place on top of you and you'll instantly detonate and you die. That's why you don't temp chains at Zeri.
I wish you told me that before I went to that on that character. That would have been very helpful, Redeye. Thank you.
Yeah,
I've never had that issue either.
It's also the weird one before like curse effect was so big. If you like back when I forgot what league it was, when Bladefall Miners was pretty big, right? they would walk into like Uber at Ziri or at Ziri, and you see the flame blast like slowing, and then you run out of range and just it just pops. It was so funny. It was great. I think Curse Effect was even like a lot stronger on bosses then. I think that was before like the big nerf they did.
Yeah.
Multiple ones.
Well, they changed the right. It used to be like additive, then they made it multiplicative or something.
Yeah,
and,
because Gudo showed how Duresso didn't feel like moving forever and stuff like
Oh, you
that.
could make things 100% like
Yeah,
not
just
cool
gone.
at all.
The Whispering Ice stuff as well, getting the chills in there.
Mhm.
You get some absolutely disgusting slows. I miss it. Well, not even slows at that point. It's freeze without actually being a freeze.
Yeah, you're stunned. You're pinned by Vaal Rain of Arrows. No movement skill allowed.
And where is Gouda? I think he's unbanned on Twitch, right? But I don't know.
Did he get
Someone made a Reddit thread recently, which was saying I miss Gouda, and Gouda replied, and he was something along the lines of like, I'm busy doing IRL shit or something. And the only reason I know that is because he was like, other people are doing similar stuff, and he like atted Wolfio and he atted me, and then there was one she was saying, lol, Tarke shit replacement, blah blah blah. So I was like, oh nice. It feels good, man.
Replacement stream for everybody.
I know, right? It's fucking ultimate scuffed budget Xeno QT PT Reedy CuteDog alarm
Who's
clock.
that, then?
Yeah, perfect. So did we talk about Flashback? Sorry, I feel like we started talking about Flashback, last started talking about Temp Chains, and then we went on a... Yeah. So
Well,
Flashback, Octavian, tell me, like, what's a Flashback, homie?
What's the flashback? Didn't Rise already give you a
Not
good,
that
good note?
definition of a
flashback. This is the flashback.
Do it
You had a vibrant description from Rise earlier.
One interesting thing, sorry. Going back to the alpha thing, do you worry that depending on when they run the flashback, it might make the alpha even less relevant? Because if you have a flashback on the same time as alpha, no one's going to play alpha over flashback, right?
That goes back to what we were talking about with whether they need in-house testing or whether they need community testing. If it's community testing, then yeah, flashback would interfere with alpha testing because you're drawing players from the same pool. People who like and play Path of Exile are going to want to do both things. But if you have in-house testing, then it's their job. They're paid to do it. You can tell them, no, you're not playing the flashback. You're testing alpha. Do that, and then they test the alpha. Which I think is another reason why alpha testing should be handled in-house. I actually agree with Raiz on that one.
Do you think data mining, like the PoEDB site, and it's like scripting, getting all the information out, every time the game is updated, is hindering GGG from giving stuff to the alpha testers to test? Because if it's league content, they're not getting it. And if they do get it, we're going to know about it. Because of the
I've
PoEDB.
never thought about that. That's a really good point.
There's an alpha version of the PoEDB as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's hindering them. Might be.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think it is.
I'd literally never thought that. Holy shit, dude. Is
I mean, it's
Redeye
gonna be
budget
a-
calf? What the fuck?
Yeah, why do you think I had my cam? I'm blonde and beautiful, baby.
I mean, that absolutely makes sense. I mean, a lot of the stuff, because they fucked up in a couple places with that, right? Like with the MTXs, for instance. Like people are like, there's actually a page on PoEDB that showcases all the MTXs that are coming up. And that's been around for a really long time. Same for a lot of abilities. Like there were MTXs that we knew are going to get released like a year, 2 years in advance even. So yeah, I would have so, but maybe with this, I mean, can they defend themselves against this data mining stuff if they run another like somewhat open house alpha? I don't think so, right?
This all just points back to needing in-house testers. You know,
Yeah.
it's the sort of brute force method to go about it because you have to hire a bunch of people. You have to simulate a player base at least in some way. But it's the only thing that gets around these issues, at least, you know, that I've thought of, that I can see here.
Is it possible, because a lot of people have mentioned this before, I don't really know because I've never done like botting in ARPGs. Would it be possible for them to just like hire a good bodder script and just like AI test most of this stuff? Could you brute force numbers that way?
You could like test whether or not certain things are, you know, mechanically bugged in the game. Like if 1 out of every 100 instances of an abyss just fails, then if you throw a lot of bots at a lot of abysses, then you'll find that sort of thing out. But you won't find out that like this particular item combination is busted because you need a person to go and figure that out.
To tell the bot to do the thing. So yeah.
So that would be very useful for testing actual league mechanics in how they, you know, function in game. And I'm actually not sure that they do that. They could very well do something along those lines, though. Maybe not even like actual in-game bots, but just, you know, some sort of script that runs through and checks
And don't
everything.
you know, GGG owns botting companies in general, so that when people buy the bots, they have their account and then they just ban it.
And they own GGG stock. And
They
Chris
ban
is
everybody on
involved.
that IP. I mean, I would imagine that's reasonable. I don't know, like in a game like Path of Exile, how reasonable that is. But like, even if you were to produce like, even if you were to just do in-house testing, right? If you just gave the people the tools, like if you just fucking gave everybody a level 90 character, I mean, the problems really with leagues are either very apparent, like in the case of Bestiary, or only start occurring to people once they're actually like mapping for a little bit. So like even creating preset characters, obviously they can't do that, and they've done that many times. Or they're able to, because like everything for build of the week stuff, I know this for a fact, is on an alpha server, and they basically copy your character. They take your character, and I don't know how it works nowadays, but back in the day, you would just like not be able to play for an hour or something as they were like getting your character. And they've got that character on alpha, and it's a specifically set up character. So if they need to target test something specifically, they can just pull people's characters. And I mean, they've got an infinite database.
Yeah, that seems like
imprinted with character.
Yeah, that seems like the most logical thing. Like every game that I've ever done testing on, it's kind of like import your character from some form of live. Done. Because like that's the thing. Like if they do this massive like big trap rework, what are they expecting a bunch of people to test the new traps by leveling a bunch of characters, and then when they get to Uber Lab, they can now see what it feels like or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, that's the alpha before.
I was actually really surprised to hear that, Raiz. They don't give you access to anything like that. Like, what if there's a horrible game-breaking bug locked behind the mechanic that Zana has at level 8? You know, like you just no one will test that. I mean, like, what if Zana 8 actually just doesn't work on certain map tile sets for some reason?
Just so we're clear too, like Alpha doesn't have everything, first of all, and second, they do have. It's not like Alpha is like the extent of everything. They clearly have like an actual QA team, which is the actual Alpha. So when we talk about Alpha in its current state, their testing is like Alpha is like volunteers, and their QA team is actually the 1K hours people, right? The expert PoE players. But like how big that group of people is and what sort of tools they have available, I wouldn't know. I have no idea. So those two things, just to be clear, are separate. That's why this alpha test would be different, because it would be available to the general public as far as I understand, depending on who they want to get into that, and it would actually have the mechanics that people usually don't get to engage with when they are playing the alpha.
I don't see the point of a gimped player base in terms of testing. Like they're going to discover problems with like the level 1 to maybe 70 process. You know, like most people aren't going to invest much more time than that into an alpha. Maybe pass that up into maps up to like 80s, 90s. You get a very small actual number of players reaching that, and it's like maybe on one character. Like there's not much valuable testing there, really. I don't know. Especially considering most of the things that will break a league or draw someone away from a league are the sort of things we were talking about earlier, where it can take a few weeks to find them. It's stuff in the end game, like broken bugs with league stones, like mostly broken bugs with league stones, but broken bugs with a lot of different mechanics and that sort of thing. There was that one where like Beyond League Stones would count summons towards Beyond, and so you could just keep infinitely summoning skeletons and letting them die, and you'd get an infinite number of Beyond monsters in your T16 map, and there were people who would use the hell out of that sort of thing. Like that's not going to be found by somebody in an alpha who doesn't have the tools to go test in high tier maps with whatever build
unless
they
want. Actually get like 100 people who have to play 200 hours, and then for the most part they're going to weed it out. But I mean, most of this, like, I don't feel like they're aware. I think like when Piranhas got released, it would be shocking to me if they were unaware of how laggy it is. But like, obviously they're on a schedule. Obviously they have to release it, so they release it. But they're aware it's in a broken state. They just don't have a choice. They didn't do it fast enough. They need a little bit more time. They must have been aware of it.
I
Like, there's
think
no.
I think I remember something about with parending testing that on their servers it didn't feel as bad because it was kind of like they were like on the server. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure this was Parentis. I might be thinking of like even a different company, but it was kind of like in that specific case, it didn't feel as bad for them because it's like there's barely any of stuff, and we're literally like, on top of the fucking server.
They
I
can
mean-
test realistically like that. You just connect to like a VPN and it just does a little loop.
Fair.
Well, was it FPS lag or was it server lag that was the problem in Parandis? Because I don't even remember.
I
'Cause,
can't
like, wasn't
remember.
that also the league when they released Blade Vortex? So like, that was the most laggy thing with Parandis, and I'm pretty sure that was exactly the league, or they released Blade Vortex before the league. So like, how can you not take this new skill gem and the new mechanic and like put them together in like a testing environment? Yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of weird.
50 stacks.
Yeah, 50 stacks Blade Vortex. And it wouldn't hit like, because some people don't know, like nowadays Blade Vortex hits in like in sequence. Each one of those 50 Blade Vortexes hit individually. So whenever you casted it, it would hit individually the way it does now, but there would be 50 of them. Yeah, so it was just like brrrr. It's
I
fucking
genuinely forgotten how laggy that skill was, but I'm having flashbacks of running lab because that was also when lab was introduced. Was Prentice trying to run like normal lab on Blade Vortex, going into a Parendus pack, and just like everything just saying no.
I remember the Noogie rip bits. He only played Blade Vortex and he had like 3 fucking rips where it was just like rip lag, rip lag. Oh, Havoc put in a reflect map and Noogie killed himself. It was like never touch Blade Vortex again. It was good stuff. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, if it's server lag, I mean, that's also replicable, and I'm sure they've learned their lesson. But they must be just like, we're on a schedule, we got to release it in its current state. They must be aware of these sort of things. Otherwise, I mean, shit. As much as I hate to say it, shit's just fucking unprofessional. That's all there is to it, really. If they don't put in enough effort to test this sort of stuff. But I mean, this will be a big stepping stone for GGG, and I think this will show a lot, and like it's going to either be a complete failure or it's going to be a massive success, or at least it's going to point them in the direction for one or the other. So
I need to ask, what happened to you, Raiz? Like, you used to be
What
this.
happened?
No. Like, Raiz used to be like one of the saltiest motherfuckers in the world when it came to Path of Exile. But whenever we have Baeclast, and this is a good thing, like, I'm not against it, Raiz has become the guy who's like, come on, guys, this time next week they're gonna get it all, like, lickety split punk
It's on the
champ.
payroll.
you know, I finally at a certain point got like out of the mentality that power creep is like fucking the game. Absolutely. Because that was the thing for a long time. Like, many people don't know that, but like when power creep was like really, really fucking going, every streamer was like talking amongst each other, and everybody was like, "Yo, this is not the game that we want to play." And then eventually, you're just like, fuck it, you know.
Did somebody send you a vanilla scented candle?
Dude, that's what
No,
it fucking was,
the-
man. That's what it was.
the relax.
Does anybody remember when GGG described their game as the spiritual successors to D2? Because they haven't done that in fucking years.
You got a girlfriend? I had a girlfriend all along, guys. It wasn't a girlfriend. I don't know. You just get around it eventually. But like the thing is, I do think the game is improving. There are things that tilt the ever-living fucking shit out of me, obviously. Like especially when we're talking about balance testing and how it's become a pattern. That something like that is messed up. That they don't put in enough effort into testing, and every league gets released in like an awkward state. Sure, it's tilting, but like 17 leagues in, and I'm still here.
No, I agree. And, like, one thing which I think is worth stressing, it doesn't matter how much I complain and how much I try to be budget project PT, I am genuinely enjoying Path of Exile, and I do think it's also getting better.
Yeah, but
And-
that's the thing too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That people are always like, guys, I have a fucking like. I could go on a UI rant right now for 30 minutes. I could bash the person who was behind Path of Exile's fucking cryptic UI design from 20 years ago. No problem, all right? But after I do something like this, the response of people is like, wait, why the fuck do you play it if you hate the game?
Oh,
I don't.
fuck
I
that.
just don't like this one fucking thing.
Dude, if you don't like the politics, just leave the country. It's that exact like mentality. Just don't live there, bitch. You know, Pohx, the thing that you need to really appreciate, Pohx, is if you're tired of answering Righteous Fire questions, just stop streaming. It's your job to answer my Righteous Fire questions.
That's like, oh my, that's like the best thing. Like, some random fucking dude who has never streamed in his life, somebody tells you, well, that's actually part of streaming. If you don't like answering the same question over and over, like, that's part of streaming. Bitch, how the fuck would you know what streaming is like if you've never done it? It's like, no. God damn it. Sorry, Pohx.
It's okay. I didn't even say anything. Dude, I've been streaming for 6.5 years, so I know all about it, man.
Dude, there's so much text written on your stream. Like, you've got every answer to every question
it doesn't matter,
in your stream.
I get questions about Arcage. Anytime there is an update or a patch about Arc, I haven't played this fucking game since I lived with my mom and dad. That I don't even know, like, that was so long ago. Anytime there's a new update, hey man, are you gonna play this game? No. Like, I have people who come in to resub just to ask me the question because they know it'll sound a lot more nice if they sub first, you know, then they ask the question.
You can't ignore it.
No, I can't. If someone subs and then asks me a question, you gotta, you know, they just gave you money. You gotta answer the question at least, you know.
But that's the thing too. You have to, like, you and Mathil, I feel like you've gone too far. Where
Absolutely.
It's like that's what people always tell me. It's like, well, Raiz, why don't you fucking just get text on your screen like Mathil and Pohx? It's like, well, if I do that, then I invite the other 50% of the people who just do it to piss me the fuck off. It's like, god damn it. Yeah. There's no winning. It's the internet, okay?
Whenever I put text on my stream, I just end up regretting it, because, like, anyone who's watched Tarke stream, you know I like to do a lot of stuff which isn't strictly PoE related. So I'll do this thing where, like, I'll put some, like, very basic text on to explain my build, but then I go to, like, watch a video, or, like, a YouTube video, so I turn off the text, I forget it's turned off, someone asks me the basic, like, Pohx Righteous Fire question, I'm like, fuck's sake, can't you read, you dumb... Sorry, I turned that off. Let me just pop that back on. Yeah, so as it says on the screen, and then the people who don't read it, the people who troll it, so now I just don't put text anywhere. But yeah.
It's just when you play these complicated, convoluted builds that newbies don't understand, they just don't get it. Like, why are you using Arcane Surge in your Death's Oath? Or, hey, I have 3 reds on my Death's Oath. What other support gems can I use? Nothing. But no, what else can I put in it? Nothing. You can't do anything. But no, like, you can't do anything else with it. Like, you need to go watch the video guides. PoE doesn't explain this. This is why streamers make a living off the game. So it's like the whole cycle, you know, it doesn't end.
It's great. It's like you're playing a lightning strike build. Hey dude, can I play this with a bow? It's like, no, I don't think so.
Try.
You can try. Nice topic list.
Nice topic list. And to be honest, we got everywhere. Just we went around the houses ever so slightly. Before we do an amazing outro, does anyone have any soapboxes or last minute things that are like, I have to talk about this?
Give Beast Crafting another chance, guys. All right.
No, I'm done. When can I leave?
She's ugly. She cheated on you, but I mean,
she's rich.
She's rich, yeah, exactly. Oh my god, that's actually the perfect analogy. I'm ending it at that. That's done. I thought I'm gonna sneak something more in. Nope, that's it.
Well, that does it. All right. Redeye, would you like to tell people where they can find May? Fuck, I ruined that sentence. Damn.
Yeah, my chance.
Redeye, yeah.
I'm done.
Fuck.
You blew it.
Damn it, bitch.
She's rich. Okay.
Yo, I stream at twitch.tv/SlightRedeye, like it says on the screen. Follow that place. I might stream after this. Thank you.
You're getting a webcam soon, right?
Fuck no. Yeah, I've got a sub goal.
Sub goal, mate. There you go.
Good fucking luck.
The optimist.
What about you, Octavian? Do you have a sub goal for a webcam?
A second one, maybe. I don't know. I'll get one for my cat or something. Every streamer needs one of those. No. I'm at twitch.tv/Octavian0, the number, not the word. And you can just Google Octavian PoE and probably come up with my YouTube channel too. I'm Octavian on YouTube as well.
Pohx, where can people find your Righteous Fire guides?
You can just go to google.com and just type in POHX, and it'll probably pop up with Mr. Pohx Kappa with Righteous Fire. But I don't play that build anymore. It's been almost a year, so don't ask me questions. Go as is. So, yep.
Raiz. You're the other.
Me?
Yeah.
Too?
Yeah.
Shit. RaizQt. Except it's Raiz, it's not Raiz. I mean, it's kind of Raiz, but Raiz, because it's Polish. Get it? So, yeah. Twitch and both YouTube. Hey, I got a lot of new YouTube videos. Check that out.
Your editor's really good now. Your editor's been killing it. And I would also like to interrupt you again and thank CuteDog for sleeping through your alarm. Because if we had one extra person here, this would have been an extra 3 hours long. So, good job.
Well, if it was somebody other than CuteDog. If it was actually CuteDog, then it probably would be shorter.
The one time I mentioned Headhunter probably mentioned like one more time, and that would have been like it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. We can all wave. I'll drop the call, and then we can peace out.
Bye.
Redeye, you're not waving, bitch.
I am. I'm waving with my legs too.
See ya.